All right, hello. This is another just sort of casual interview, chat, discussion thing. This one's not about AI, or at least partially won't be. It kind of depends where it goes. Our main theme here is this is Sean. I'm gonna mispronounce his last name, but Sean Ngo from the YouTube channel Artbook Addiction, and he reached out to me, emailed me, saying he was interested in talking about art or art-related topics, creativity in general, and it sounded like we had a lot of things we could talk about. So I guess first I'll go ahead and, if there's anything you want to introduce about yourself, I was going to, give him a little bit of an intro, and then his idea was we might each show some of our art on the stream, and then we'll move into kind of different topics. So,
Mhm.
so yeah. Anything you want to say to the audience about yourself, YouTube channel, whatever?
Yeah, like you said, my channel is called Artbook Addiction. I am an artist. I paint primarily in oil, right? If you want to look at my website, it's ngooilpaints.com. I'm sure we're going to be looking at it very soon. But I basically my channel is doing art book reviews and kind of talking about design and I also have another like type of video where I talk about art philosophy, creative philosophy. It's not exactly just all in art, but it kind of encompasses, being a creative person and what that entails, right? So that's what we talk about today. And yeah, so
Yeah, and it may veer off to different areas too. This one's, I think, is going to be more casual than
mhm.
some of the other ones. Okay, so I guess first thing we'll do is show off some of his art. And it took me some doing to make sure this should show properly, but I think it will. Even though the side of your website's going to be a little cropped, but the pictures should be fine.
That's fine. If you see as long as you see it, it's fine.
Yeah, I think everybody will see it. So it's here. It's going to display over everything here. Oh, and I should warn you, one or two of these has, I guess, PG-13 level nudity, so you can avert your eyes if you wish. So yeah, here are some examples. Just to show, and I could tell from when I was looking at these that yeah, he lives out in California, and I kind of guessed that even before I knew exactly, just from your art has lots of yellows in it and lots of sun that it kind of gave me that impression anyway, and plus some of the environments that you show.
Yeah, we definitely get a lot more sunshine than Eastern Europe, right?
Yeah. Well, even when I was grew up in Virginia, or most of the places I lived in. If there's any you wanted me to linger on, I could go back, but okay, I'll go ahead and restore the chat for a second. Was there anything you wanted to mention about the paintings that we just showed, or I can go back to them? Or
Not really. I
okay,
just wanted to kind of give me the accreditation, and then we could move on and look at your work, and then so just to be
yeah,
like, oh, I'm not talking out of my ass. You know what I mean?
yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, show some art cred. Yeah, and in fact, that'll provide a nice contrast to my drawings because I this was just whoa, my got blurry, but oh well. Uh, this is just since I moved, I didn't really take any of my art with me, but my mother has actually sent me some periodically in packages from when I was younger. So I figured this might be a good excuse to show some of my art if people were kind of curious about it. I'll just try to run through these quick and give a quick overview of what they were. Okay. Yeah, so here's one from me as a kid. I don't even remember this one that well. I'm pretty sure that's a wolf falling from a tree. I forget the context.
Oh
So
wow.
let's see. And I need to find the window I had this on. Okay, yeah, there it is. Okay, so I just have a handful of these. This I drew in the 4th grade, And I can draw okay if I'm looking at something. So this is kind of my proof. Our I think our assignment was to just draw something around the room, and I decided that I wanted to have something kind of complex as more of a challenge, and the shoe sort of
Mhm.
fit the bill on that. And plus, with my art style, my stuff tends to look better the less clearly defined my lines are. So if everything's like a little rough, not that it can look better. And I thought the complexity might kind of mask that. So
So how old were you when you drew this?
okay, fourth grade, I guess 10 or 11, something around there.
Hey, dude, that's pretty good for 10. Like
Yeah,
the
well, the thing
structure.
is that I probably peaked out around there. So it's, well, I mean, obviously, if I had like stayed with an art career, I probably would have refined. But I remember in
Yeah.
high school seeing that, like, there were people who were just clearly soaring above what I was. But yeah, but that's also from looking at something.
Mhm.
Okay, let's,
Well, that's an interesting thing that we could talk about.
yeah, okay, so here's
Yeah,
another
in-
variation we had later. This, I'm
yeah.
not sure what, okay, you might know what this is called. Like, I think, no, I'm thinking of something else. Okay, forget it. But that's just a variation with color. My shoes were not those colors, but the assignment
Yeah,
was to color it the
you
way
just
you
wanted to
wanted
add.
to. So this was
Yeah.
my coloring style. And they're not. These are the last of the shoes. That's just those were convenient subjects. I remember in art class.
Yeah.
Okay, now this one
Um
is from imagination, and yeah, I can even zoom in here. I think this is a combination of watercolor. I mean, not watercolor, colored pencil and maybe marker for just the. I was just
it,
drawing imagination sort of space scene from my
yeah, see,
imagination
these
there.
are actually like much more interesting. Like, okay, so I wanted to talk about like the difference between design versus copying, right? I
I
would
have
say
some of
that
both in here.
copying is depending on the person, much easier, right? Like the brain, when it comes to artists, they tend to lean in one of two camps, right? Design versus copy, right? Um, they're basically two different schools of like thought, right? Copying is like, taking something that you see and putting it down on the paper,
Right.
right? And design is taking something from your mind and then bringing life to it, right? On the page. And like when you're first starting out, you kind of lean towards one or the other, right? Both are helpful, but like you need to have both to kind of make like let's say like a really awesome like concept art piece, right? You need both of those skills, the ability to copy, right, which is to mimic like certain materials and stuff like that, and then the design so that you could bring out the things that are from your imagination and like actually like bring it all together and make it look nice, right? And from what I'm seeing from your work, it seems that like you're actually pretty good at copying, right?
Though I
And I
didn't. Sorry, KF. I didn't actually know that. I think until I did that shoe, and they
Yeah,
like the art teacher said like, okay, draw what you're looking at.
yeah.
So
It's interesting because a lot of younger artists, they will like it will hurt for them because they don't know like which side they're on until they actually do it, right? And they'll be like, "Whoa, I actually have skill! Like I didn't even realize." Like, and they're like, "Oh, I suck at stick figures, but if I look at this cup and I draw it, I'm actually pretty decent." You know what I mean?
I don't have good examples on me. Maybe I can get some of those later on. But literal stick figures, just the dot or circle and the sticks forming the body. I've been told I have talent of doing from a couple sources where I've been told with just like the barest of lines, they have like expression and you can get, well, you'll see a little bit
Yeah,
of that, but they won't be stick figures exactly. And in fact, I even used to like have, well, in school, we would have like stick figure sort of wars. And the way it would work is you would draw like a landscape or like,
yeah,
like an edge of a cliff or something like that. And the way it would work is you draw like your little soldier and then you'd flick the pen or the pencil a certain amount, and then that would be their move, and then the other person would. So we would have like literal art wars, but where each person would sort of move their stick figures into
Okay, that's
position.
cool. That's cool.
I don't know if I still have examples of those, uh, but yeah, stick figures. I've been able to. I've had multiple people compliment me on stick figures. Apparently, I've been able to capture those at that level.
Yeah, because you know, what a child may lack in skill, they can make up for in expressiveness, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I don't even have my best examples with me. I have a few that I kind of liked how the expressiveness came out, even if my proportions were all off. And
mhm.
well, here let me just run through
Can we,
the
can
rest
we,
of
can
mine
we look at
quick.
that like Mars base thing
Yeah,
again?
yeah, here.
I want
Oops,
closer
that's
look
yours.
at that.
Okay. Yeah, here I can even. Yeah, I realize now I was obviously Mars inspired, but this was not our solar system because I realized I think even then I would have known. Okay, this is another Earth-like planet here. Where it's meant to.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah, zoom
Mars
out.
one.
You see the whole thing? Zoom out.
Okay, yeah.
Let's see.
I think the colors were probably more vivid when I did this, but
Oh yeah, colors kind of bleach over time if it's exposed to the sun.
yeah.
Um, so
And
what was the idea here? What was the
I
concept
don't even
that you had?
remember. I was just kind of going from my imagination what I think maybe what I thought a neat solar system would look like. Like I think
So,
this might have been meant to be a nebula up at the top there. And these are
oh,
other stars and asteroids. I think this was meant to be an alien spacecraft, which you can see it's not conventional. It's almost like a
yeah.
spore type thing or something.
So
I don't.
from what I'm seeing,
I
it
was in
seems
middle
like
school when I did. Okay, sorry.
it seems like when you were a kid that you had an interest in like sci-fi and in space in general, right?
Well,
And it's
there's
just cool to see that. Like, is that a base? Like, what is that? Like
yeah,
in the
or a settlement or something. I think I
yeah.
got the impression this would be Mars-like, so you wouldn't be able to terraform it or anything, but you could have these kind of outposts. I think is what I was thinking. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. My memories are very hazy on this. I'm pretty sure this was middle school. I did this.
Okay, hold on. I just want to preface it. If I'm looking this way, it's because I have a second
Oh
screen,
no,
so
no,
I can.
I don't.
Yeah.
People literally can't see you at the moment because the art's there. But
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
and
Okay,
even
well,
then, don't even worry about it. It's
yeah.
fine. Okay, so here,
You
let
know,
me. What?
like I was saying before, it reminds me of Marathon, right? I know you haven't played the game, but what do you call it? Mandalore Reviews did a review on the game, and like he talked about how there's a Mars base that's literally a planetary like ship, right? It's like they used Mars and they like a Mars moon and converted it into a ship, and that's what that kind of reminds me of. Like see the blast behind, it's like the exhaust
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
that was meant to
ship.
be it. I might have been. Geez, I might have been inspired a little bit. It's been forever since I've seen it. Buckaroo Banzai in the Fifth Dimension. I think they might have had a spaceship that was like much more organic and not like what we think of, kind of more like aircraft with sleek lines and that sort of thing, or like Star Wars with over industrialized things. I might have been. I think I was definitely going for like some sort of organic spaceship there. But yeah,
So
let me
what
run.
else? What else we got in here?
Yeah, I only have a few more. Yeah, here's another one that's sort of. I don't even remember what I was going for, but I think I was thinking of some sort of silhouette image against the moon,
Oh,
maybe, or
uh,
I was trying for like moody clouds, even though that's not really how it came out. But again, my memories are just gone on this for the most part. In fact, if my initials weren't there, I might believe I never even did this. So.
it's kind of cool though. It's like the silhouette of a moon, like a shadow man on the moon. Because
Yeah, or
like
I'm not sure if I meant to have them in the foreground or if this was you're looking up at the moon. This is what I just don't remember. I'm pretty
I
sure
think
these were meant to be clouds. So
yeah, I think maybe it's like like okay, let's say like in like a film, we're looking up at like the silhouette of the moon, and he's like summoning the storm.
yeah,
You know
maybe
what I mean?
something like that.
Yeah.
I have another one. Well, I don't have
It's
it.
like weirdly cinematic for a child's drawing.
Yeah, this would have been middle school, pretty sure. maybe late elementary, but yeah, this would have been pastel. I can tell because of how it felt. So this is kind of oil pastel I was using.
Yeah.
Now
Okay.
this you mentioned copying. Here's an example of copying. So although I don't know if I was copying the color or not. I mean,
Oh, look, it's what's his name?
Snoopy
Snoopy.
from Peanuts.
That's cool, man. Like, hey,
Yeah,
dude, look
but
at
but
that.
you can tell that's much more defined because I obviously had to have been looking at
And you
something.
had
Yeah,
some reference,
yeah.
right?
I don't know if I had a color reference or not though, so it's hard to. It could be
I
I
think
did the
you did.
coloring
I
on
think
my own, but
those colors are pretty accurate to like you see you have lighting and shadow, which
y-
is like that's and like that's kind of crazy for a kid, you know,
well, that was
most
my
parents, you know,
best
pay
guess
attention.
at it. I knew the back. I know like the very basics of shit. Yeah, I probably was copying something color because I don't know if I would have remembered that, like the back of his
Mhm.
body there. I don't know because I think I could have like guessed on this part. The back, I don't know hmm. Like I know the concept that like in the back from the light source that should be darker, but beyond that, it's hard to say.
So this is interesting because what I've realized is a lot of people who are creative, you know, when they first started out, like when as kids they would draw, right? And I'm sure you know people in general draw, but like the drawing creates the initial fascination with creating and like taking an idea and then like putting it to the page. You know what I mean? Right?
I'm not sure I ever had this much of a conscious thought about it when I was doing it, but
Exactly, exactly. But yet we see the thread, you know, like you know you know you clearly have a passion for like sci-fi, space, like cinematic things. You know what I mean, right?
adventure themes probably be another
Yeah,
one.
and like you had the will to try to recreate it, right? And like you know that energy still existed in you from when you were a child, and now
I
you brought it now into like video form. You know what I
I
mean?
don't know if I have any concrete examples, but comedy was also there. Like I have one. I don't know if we still have it. If I do, ask my parents. Where it was a moose in a cape
Mhm.
crashing into a window, and a guy's freaking out as this is happening, and there wasn't really any context. I just thought it was a funny idea. So, like I think it was even for like the theme was like following your dreams or something, and I just decided that I'm just gonna or like I have no idea what my dreams are gonna be then. So I just yeah, again, it was like a flying
And you just
moose with a cape, just looking
mhm.
kind of panicked as it's like crashing into like a window of a guy's house, and
You
like glass
aspire
shards are going everywhere, and
you aspire to become a moose who destroys the china shop, right?
or no, I wasn't imagining myself as the moose. It's just like, well, it might have been like
I
where
think
you
you just
see
wanted to throw
yourself
a
in the
wrench,
future or
you know?
something.
Yeah, you just wanted to throw a wrench into the teacher's plan, you know, just like, "Ugh, you know, how
Well,
about that, dude?"
yeah, it wasn't even that necessarily. It's more like I have no idea what I'm going to be doing in the future. So,
Yeah.
and this idea popped into my head. And I thought it sounded funny, so fine, I went with it.
Well, in a strange way, it kind of like came to fruition because you had a strange idea that wasn't typical and like in a way like, you know, you just presented a funny moment, right? Which
Yeah,
you do now,
I'm
right?
still doing
Um,
that kind of thing where I'm happy to veer off course if I think it's
exactly, right?
entertaining.
So in a weird way, it was accurate. You know what I mean?
Well, let's see the rest of them then.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Not too many left. Oh yeah, and this one takes some explanation. This was for an art contest where we were going to take a field trip to Washington D.C. and the prompt was we were supposed to make a shirt design. And
Whoa,
we could only have
that drawing is actually really good. Like
yeah. Well,
for
my proportion. I obviously looked at the capital, but even though my proportions, I could tell. I knew even then my proportions were off, but I knew also I wasn't going to be fixing this. so
wow.
Like,
Dude, that's so intricate for a child's drawing.
okay,
Like,
so I can maybe figure out what grade I was in. It'll take me a minute. Uh, I think it would have been about 14 when this happened. Yeah, and the bottom is we're talking about. There's some politics here on the bus. Since I knew this was an art contest, I had some friend. Well, 69 was gonna, get more students to laugh at it, and so that was added in marker later. I
that's
can
hilarious.
tell. And this symbol, that was like I was friends with this guy, kind of general friends, who was friends with almost everybody in the school. And he said, put that symbol on the bus. If you do that, like apparently it was like some inside joke among like a lot of kids at the school. He says, if you put that, you're gonna get more votes for your design. And this ended up coming in second. And
Nice, dude.
for the great, and yeah, the winning
What
design
what
looked.
symbol is it? Is that those like L's right there, or what?
Yeah, there was a symbol. I have no idea what the reference was, but it stood for Happy Land. It was some logo. It was some in logo among the grade at the time. So that was me doing some politics there. So I said, sure, I can add that to the bus if that's gonna make like a lot more people vote for it. So yeah.
What's the story with the guy on top? What's
Oh,
he about?
that's just kind of symbolizing us being wild, for
Yeah,
like middle, because there were a bunch of middle schoolers and we were going.
yeah.
Yeah,
You're being
yeah, and I
rebellious.
can tell. I'm pretty sure I knew this was wrong, like the O going this way when all the others are kind of seem to have more of a theme to them. Although this, I think I was just kind of going with whatever for that. But
So how old were you when you made this?
okay, I think about 14 because I was born
Well,
at the tail end of '82. So I'm trying to think.
dude, I think if you were to continue, you'd be actually really good with environments, and like, because like the intricacy of the DC building is laudable, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
Like, that's not something you normally see from someone who's younger and like, like didn't really know their own talent. You know what
well,
I mean?
yeah,
Right?
well, I knew. By this point I had done the shoe, so I knew I could do some complex things. But you can see how my proportions are all over the place.
Yeah.
And
Well, buildings are significantly harder than something that's like up close because buildings you have to get like a lot of things right for it to look right. And you could see that you didn't really exactly nail that,
no,
but you definitely nailed the feeling of the building. When I see the building, I know exactly which one it is. So like, there's something impressive about that.
yeah, I mean,
You know what I mean?
I had to have been looking at a photo for that.
Yeah.
The bus, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I might have
The
had a
bus,
reference, but
I think that's
yeah,
from your
because
head.
I'm missing like a wheel well. Like I'm seeing, and the grill's not how a normal bus. So maybe I did do like the bus from Imagination, and I can say all these characters are from Imagination because you can tell it's kind of off with the proportions also. But
That's cool. Like I don't know. It's expressive and there's something about it. You know what I mean? Like clearly the skill, would need polishing, but there's a theme. There's some kind of like I feel like like kids being like like resist,
Yeah,
right?
well, the
Like
idea is it's like kind of wild. That was the
yeah,
theme of.
being like a wild
Like
child,
yeah,
right?
if we're going here, yeah. So one kid's riding the bus, their hand
Yeah.
sticking out, paper airplane, guy sticking his head out, that sort of thing. And the
Okay.
idea is, yeah, somebody. The idea is we've arrived at the Capitol, and you see some people are coming out. So, but
Dude.
yeah, well, in 1 second, I wasn't bitter about the. Well, I thought the winner was more boring, but it looked better.
That's always the case. Okay, when it comes to school competitions, right? The winner usually gets like second or third because they want to like oh, we don't want to push the idea of like like resisting and like being
Yeah,
wild
yeah.
at
For all I
the
know, they had their hands on the teachers had their hands on the scales for.
yep.
But
And then
yeah, the
usually
winner. Well, I mean, the winner could have won organically. It was what it was is like the Hard Rock Cafe logo.
yeah.
They took that and they had this exact same style, but made it Hard Walk because we were going to be touring a lot of different places in middle school as part of the trip.
Was it
And
just a logo or what?
what?
Was it just a logo?
Yeah, it was basically a parody of the Hard Rock Cafe logo, but instead it said Hard Walk, and then it said, you know, Blacksburg Middle School, that sort of
Yours
thing.
is way better. Okay, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Well, theirs
a
was more
logo.
competent. I'll say that. They nailed the imitation better. So that was the winning design.
Yeah, but that like okay, in my eyes, that's just like a logo. It doesn't really like it's the idea is cool, right? But like yours is way more complex. It takes way more skill, and like though it's like kid level, you your idea came through, right? And that's what's cool. That's like the
Well,
implementation. You know
even
what I
though
mean?
it's
The
off,
intent
you can
came
tell this has some energy to it. Yeah, here, I'll
through.
pull it back. You know, because I have like the sort of blast effect around the title, and then you have the capital, and then everything's kind of rowdy with the bus and everything.
Yeah.
I remember not being upset that this didn't win. In fact, I remember thinking like, "Wow, second, that's pretty good," because this
Yeah.
was second in like all of my grades. So I would have been like, I think 6th or 7th grade, something around there.
I'm sure you were the people's winner. Okay, they probably looked at it and they're like, why didn't this win? You know, because
Yeah,
that's what
well,
I would
again,
think.
I was doing some politics with with
Yeah.
69 on the buzz, and then the Happy Land logo, which to this day I don't even know what that was about. But like this kid I was friends with, he was probably friends with like half the school. Like he was a
Yeah.
real likable guy. So
You
uh,
got more than this. What else you got?
yeah, I think okay. This is the last one. This is something I just drew on a scrap piece of paper when I was in a bicycle accident. I was just kind of drawing a reenactment of what happened. And I was coming down this bike path pretty
Mm.
quickly, and then some sort of animal just darted out in front of me. To this day, I don't know what it was. I think it had to be either a cat or a groundhog based on the size.
Mm-hmm.
And that sent me flying. So that's me on the bike there. Yeah, I think this black part, I don't know. I think that must have been like a log on the path or something. I don't think that was meant to be part of. I'm not sure what that was in my mind, but so that sent me flying, and I just got bloodied up by that one. It just scraped on the pavement. Yeah, because I landed with with my hands out, and I think I had shorts on, so it bloodied my knees, like legs,
Mm-hmm.
palms, like some of my
Dude,
arms.
that sounds
I
horrible.
remember I was. I think my mother said I was like the mummy for a while after that because I had bandages just on my arms and legs. I mean, no serious damage, but a lot of like tissue damage, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was. This was just a scrap drawing I did, to show, to like a reenactment I was doing of what happened here, and I get my mother kept it. It was just on a scrap piece of paper. In fact, on the back of it, you can see some writing saying, just some notes for something else. I forget what it is. So
Yeah,
she
well,
sent
clearly, there's. I think you expressed it.
I
Like that.
stand by my mouth expression here. Yeah, my facial expression. I stand by that because like kind of.
You could totally tell like what's going on. Like something messed up, and I could see why people think that your stick figures are expressive,
Oh,
dude. Because
yeah, I've been able to do expressive, but yeah, that's how I felt.
yeah, I
Like
can see that, dude. Oh my god.
yeah. So it's yeah,
Yeah,
that was one of my worst bike accidents for sure.
I think definitely there is there's like a clear like illustration of your ability to show like a moment. You know what I mean? Right? Like you see this and you know exactly what's happening. Like in an instant you're like, "Oh, dude, that guy fucked up. He like something got in his way or like you hit a crack or something and you're sent flying, dude." Right?
Yeah.
Um
My only consolation was there was nothing I could have done
yeah.
because it came out so fast. Like because I was zipping along there, maybe probably 30, 35 miles an hour just around this bike path curve. It was more curved than the photo, which makes it look like. And then just bam, like, there, I couldn't have swerved. I couldn't have braked. There was nothing I could have done to not hit that animal. So,
Yeah.
and
Hopefully
whatever
the animal
happened,
turned out cool.
it crawled. it didn't kill it, at least not right away, whatever happened, because I remember turning to see like what the hell did I just hit, and I was in kind of like a primal mood at the time where I wanted to just get up and kill it because it had just shredded me so
Yeah,
much, but
it
it
just
wasn't
destroyed.
there, so
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I
But
think
yeah, that
I was ready to kill that, whatever it was, but that was just
so
kind of spur of the moment thing.
so it's very interesting because you know, like I think that drawing is a very like primordial like human urge, right? And I feel like when you're a kid and you're like experiencing moments, there's part of you that wants to express that and like have a record of what happened, right? And it's just interesting that creativity, like I would say that like art is the like when it comes to art, we're trying to enrich in our senses, right? I would say that art does that for the eyes, right? Music does that for the ears, right? Food, taste, and smell, right? And then touch, it's like embracing others, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, right? And it's very interesting that like, I would say like as a kid, your first instinct isn't really to go to things like music or or like cooking or something like that because they're more complex things, right? But drawing, making a mark, right? That is just something that's like innate to us. You know what I mean? That's just something that like we go to as children, and like now I'm like I have an idea, boom, I want to bring it to the page. You know what I mean? Right? And so like in a weird way, everyone is sort of creative. You know what I mean? Everyone has like these ideas that they want to put down on the page, right? And to me, like drawing is like almost like the first stage of being creative, right? And I'm sure many of the audience here, as kids, drew stuff, right? And like if they looked at it, they're like, what I always see is when people look at their old drawings, right? They're immediately, brought back to that moment, right? And like they get a big grin on their face because they're like, man, dude, when I was a kid and I had these ideas, it's like it's so beautiful, dude.
Some
You
of
know what I
them I
mean?
don't even remember. I mean, I was thinking I did this, so like, so,
Yeah.
but I probably did a lot of drawings too. Yeah, well, I think in that accident one, my motivation was just it was much more of a picture's worth 1,000 words. So
Yeah.
this is more like this is my explanation for what happened, so I could, show it to others like, oh, okay, because sometimes if you can see something, it can explain it immediately in ways
Yeah.
that
Way better. Hmm.
what words don't. It depends on the person too, but I think that was my motivation for that picture. I think that's all I have for now, though. Ones I was hoping to show. So you mentioned science fiction, but I also had some fantasy ones where one we were supposed to make, I think like homes for a gnome or something, or
Hmm.
like, and I ended up making like this big kind of clay mushroom sculpted that came out pretty well. And in fact, at the time, I even used like real moss that was like hanging off the edge of it to kind of give it
Whoa,
a better
that's
look.
kind of cool.
Yeah, the moss, yeah, it turned brown and dried up. I'm not sure if it's even there now, but uh, and another one I had was that was pretty kind of proud of was sort of this wizard, and I kind of bucked the trend for that one for the class because yeah, I wish I had a. I'll try to get a picture of it later, but it had a wizard there, kind of stereotypical with a pointed hat and a robe, holding a wand. But I noticed when we were sculpting it, I mean, I'm not a master sculptor. It's probably similar to what the other stuff was, but I noticed a lot of the other kids, they were putting little eyes on them, and they all kind of looked kind of bug-eyed because they were rolling like little balls in them to express the eyes.
Yeah.
So what I did instead was I just had him sleeping, and I used my thumbnail to kind of make an indentation in the clay, and that looked pretty good that way.
Hmm.
Like he's just like he's a lazy wizard that's just fallen asleep. And to me, that looks so much better than like the bug-eyed look that like 95% of the class had. So that
Yeah,
was
because it seemed like you saw that and you were like, that doesn't work, and so you made a
yeah,
call.
yeah, and there were
And you're
no
like, well, I can't do eyes, so I might as well just have him like, with these, representation of like sleeping, right?
Oh yeah, and it
Um,
looks so much better to me. It's
yeah,
not that I was trying to do it differently because the class is doing it that way. It's like you said, I could just see that doesn't work. Like for what, in my opinion.
yeah, it's cool because you have a creative preference. You're like, you see something, you're like, that doesn't work, right? And so you
Yeah,
try something else, and you're like, and you probably, just did it as an experiment, and then you're like, oh, that looks pretty good, and then you made the call to be like, hey, let's go through with that. Boom, you know what I
and I
mean?
remember even thinking like, oh, I wonder is this against the rules for the art assignment because they could see this as me cheating because I'm not doing the eyes or, but they
Yeah,
accepted it. So
yeah, because it looks good. That's what really matters,
oh
dude.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, it gave it a good. Even now, I'm pretty proud of that one. That one kind of almost kind of holds up now. I mean, but if I were to like
Yeah,
make it today, like yeah, I'll try and get a picture of that one sometime.
yeah,
But
because that like it's interesting that like that sense of pride in a creative element probably echoes to today. You know what I mean?
yeah, well, I
Right.
guess I like the image of like the lazy, or the lazy wizard because
Hmm.
that's the vibe it gave off. But well, that might tie
Because
into the humor a little bit again. Instead of a powerful thing that this is a wizard who's just kind of phoning it in. Yeah, and I think I
yeah,
gave him kind of like a round nose, kind of like a cartoon style
yeah, so there's like
thing
a
too.
sense of humor to it as well. So there's like there's a lot of elements going on, right? And it's interesting because these, like I said, you're expressing yourself. You have a preference, right? And like because of these small little things that you're doing, that expressiveness in turn goes into the piece, right? And it's just so interesting because like some kids they're just not good at it, right? They're not meant to do this, but like other people, they could do it, and like it's just almost innate, almost natural, right?
Yeah, I mean, I never really thought of myself as like a master artist, but like
Yeah.
in middle school, we had to choose an elective, and the options were band, choir, or art. And overwhelmingly, I knew I'd rather do art rather than the other
Mhm.
two. So it was well. Hey, I don't want to just be about like talking about my artwork. There were topics you were interested in bringing up. I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I want.
I don't know. Maybe people are interested in watching this. For me, it was just kind of feeling like a little self-serving here. I didn't really want that for the chats. I'm
Yeah,
kind of
well,
interested in like what art or creativity ideas you wanted to kind of dive into deeper.
okay, so you know, basically what I wanted to talk about was more like creative philosophy, right? I find that very interesting. There's a lot of depth and mystery to that, right? So I think we should talk about that. You know what I mean? Because that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like my main subject, and we could kind of like splinter off of that. But um, basically, what I'm talking about is like more like on a metaphysical level, right? This is more like conceptual, right? And not religious. Okay, I want to really specify that it's not religious. It's not like we're not talking about like it's more spiritual, but not like oh it's like Christianity or anything like that, right? So so this is like I've done a lot of reading and I've done a lot of like inner exploration when it comes to this, right? But I would say okay, so here's how the world of the artist works. Here's how the world of the creative works, right? There is the realm of order, right, which is reality, which is what like I could touch things, right? So this is solid, right? It's real, right? And then there is the plane of the divine, okay, which is formless, okay? It's chaotic, it's ideas, it's like kind of like you know what I mean? It's what the oracle in like a movie would see and explore in, right? It's the force that is beyond us, okay, right?
Or
And what art,
imagination.
exactly. And what artists can do is tap into that, reach in, grab something, and then bring it into reality with their skill and their ability. And like how good it comes out, depends on the artist, right? But the whole point is that they are reaching in, grabbing something, like, and it's usually through inclination, through instinct, and like it's unconscious. You know what I mean, right? But we grab something, and we and like and it possesses us like an idea, right? And like oh, I have this idea, I got to get it out, and you don't really know why, but you do, right? You have to, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so you create that, and like now people get to experience your vision, right? But at the same time, it wasn't necessarily just yours, right? It felt like there was some kind of like calling beyond. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like the
yeah, yeah.
like there's
I get what
something there's like I don't really know. It's like a mist. You know what I mean? Right?
yeah, yeah. All I have all kinds of ideas. I'm not sure. Some I can trace back to things. Others I have no idea. Well,
Yeah,
that probably gets amplified a lot in things like dreams too, where
yeah.
you know
It's
you have
very
no
yeah,
idea
that's
where some
exactly
dream
that's exactly how
ideas
it is. Yeah,
came
it's
from.
it's
Yeah.
it's dreamlike, because it comes from the divine. Okay, it comes from the other plane, the plane of chaos, right? Where it's like it's like it's just weird ideas, and like I feel often when I'm painting, right, that I become possessed, right, by like, and then like I don't even control my own hand, and I'm just going and I'm doing something, and then like my brain will be like, here, put this crazy like color down. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And then I do it, right, and it leads to a result that I was never expecting, never thought even would have thought of, but it works. Okay, and that's when you're channeling the muse. Okay, so I would say that the muse is your connection to the divine. It is another entity that lives within the divine and is connected to you, right? And she will give you images and notions and instincts, right? And so when you're in the flow state, it seems like something is just like, kind of coming through you, right? And you're like, and you could fight it and then like try to gain control, but you produce lesser art that way, right? But when you let yourself go and give into the flow state and just kind of like like better art is created. It's just that unconscious thing, dude. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
with the flow state, I, my first thought is we can explain sort of some of the flow state
Mhm.
because our brains tend to like to be able to automate things. Like,
Yeah,
and flow states can happen in all kinds of different activities where, it's like you'll be doing it and then you realize, wow, I had almost no conscious thought of what I was doing for the past 3 to 5 minutes or something.
hmm,
But at the same time, for art, there's also the question of, well, where are these ideas coming from? Because I mean,
hmm,
I can, you know, anybody can like space out doing activities, and some art can be like that, especially if it's like, you're doing like some aspect of it that's more routine in your brain. Like a
yeah,
shading you've done a bunch of times, and you have to do
yeah.
that.
There's definitely a difference between like being unconscious and or letting being in the flow state and creating something versus like like, oh, I'm in a factory and I want to efficiently like weld this thing,
Yeah,
right?
or why are you driven to draw what you're drawing in the first place?
Mhm.
That's one of those. Yeah, I could tell when I talked to you earlier that that's one of those things where I've probably put very little conscious thought into that, and I think you have a stack of books behind you that you've probably put
Mhm.
that you probably put into thinking and exploring that. So
Yeah, because that is the world of the artist, right? To kind of figure like because like when you're younger, you're just like you're all driven by impulse and instinct, and you don't really understand what that's about. And I feel like you know for me, I'm in the pursuit of mastery, right? I would like to one day be regarded as a master, right? I don't know if that's gonna happen. It's not really up to me. You know what I mean? But I'm going for that, right? And by
yeah,
by by chasing that, you learn things and you think about things and you kind of like especially with my channel because I've been I talk about the artist journey, I talk about the creative journey, and like a lot of it is what I go through, right? And the things that I've learned by going through it, right? and I've basically like just submerged myself in that world, right? Because I really have very little interest in what's going on in the real world. You know what I mean,
I
right?
can
When like,
relate.
and it's not really like oh I'm not conscious and I don't know about it. It's just like to me it's just so less interesting than what's going on creatively and like in the world of like my own mind or like in a creative process. It's just so much more interesting and like
If you
that's what I really,
haven't seen
you know
it,
what I
I'm
mean?
gonna have to send you a link or a timestamp to one of my videos. But probably a lot of the audience watching has seen this. In one of my Game Dungeon follow-up episodes,
Yeah.
I gave a visual portrayal of like where my brain's at with things, and I said it's like a pendulum that sort of swings back and forth between reality and escapism. And
Hmm.
under escapism, I found like this kind of like just this, one of the most fantastic kind of fantasy, abstract, colorful paintings I could find and put it in there. And then on
Yeah, I saw.
reality, I just had like a solid brick wall,
Yeah,
for
that's because that's what it is, right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
portrayed it right there, the world of order versus the world of chaos, right? And the artist is there to go in between, to transfer one into the other, right? Because like I think really good art, like whether it's like art, music, or whatever, right? It tries like really good stuff tries to bring you into that space, into the realm of the divine, right? Where it's like it's like you're realizing a truth that you always knew, but like are reinvigorated once again, right? Like, have you ever listened to like a song and like you just hear it like and it just kind of like binds with you and your spirit and you're just
Oh
like,
yeah.
whoa, like where the hell? And you might have listened to it like 100 times, right?
Oh
But then
yeah,
you feel
yeah.
a sense of awe, right? And like that is the divine entering you, right? That is like when you watch a movie and like you and the character in the movie are feeling the exact same thing. That it like that synthesis, right? And you're like, whoa, like that's the divine, dude. That's what you really want. You know what I mean? Right? And I think that's what all great art aspires to be, right? Whether like of course there's like the plot and everything, you know what I mean? But like usually there's a moment where you're like, did I just like you felt something extreme internally and you don't really know what it was. You know what I mean? Except for like maybe a sense of awe, right? And like I really think that that's the value of art, you know? To and like maybe with that awe you get like a lesson or something. You know what I mean? Right? Or like like oh dude like you watch a love movie and you're like and you feel the characters, you're like, you know what, dude? Love's still out there. You know what I mean? Love is real. You know what I mean? Right? And then you could like through the power of like a story, you could change someone's mind. You know what I mean? Right? And that's crazy, dude. You know what I mean? Like who like how could you can I feel like I talk to people, I can never change their mind on like the simplest thing, right? Yet you show like a movie or something or a great piece of work and they're like, whoa, dude, my experience like I've changed my mind, dude. You know, like or my perspective is different. You know what I mean?
I can actually think of a accidental example of that had of that with this one girl I knew where she had like all these plans of things she was trying to do, and I was trying to explain that like, yeah, I don't think this is like realistic for you to take on like this many things, and like I tried to explain it, and
Hmm.
again, none of it sunk in. It's like she was determined. So I made just a real quick drawing, and I basically drew like the classic atlas from mythology holding up the globe, and I wrote out like all the different things she was trying to do, like that. It was just a simple drawing and like a chart almost combined with that, and it's like that immediately clicked with her. She was like, oh my, oh wow, like it for some
Yeah.
reason her seeing that like just as an image like clicked with her in a way me just explaining it did not. That you don't have enough hours in the day for everything you're trying to accomplish. You have to kind of have triage and decide what's most
Yeah,
important for
and
you.
like have an argument and it's like and then like but the image
Yeah,
boom,
yeah.
and you're like,
It's like I
wow.
probably
Yeah.
spent like 20 minutes trying to explain that to her, and then like once I drew the picture, it's like instant almost.
Yeah.
Wait,
Because there's real power in creation. There's real power in, like what we create, because like everyone, I feel like society has deemed artists to be like worthless now, right? Or like that we're a non-important function, right? Except that that's not true. You know what I mean? If you look like back in the 50s, like art was huge, right? Illustrations were huge. You could look at like Norman Rockwell, Haddon Sunbloom. They're like you could pull up their work if you want.
I know Norman
Look
Rockwell.
up Haddon Sunbloom. He's the Coca-Cola guy,
Oh yeah,
right?
Norman Rockwell has like a million kind of like
Yeah,
idealized American family or 50s imagery stuff. Probably, if you're not familiar with Norman Rockwell, you've probably seen a picture from him somewhere. So
exactly. Let me see if I can send you some Haddon Sunbloom images, because he's a fantastic painter. And oh, dude, this is great. This is great. Here we go. Copy image. And it just like with a single image you can. I posted in the Discord if you want to see it.
oh yeah, the classic Santa here. Okay, I'll share this in a second once I.
Like
Okay.
images can instantly convey what words can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there we go. I have it shared on the screen now. Yeah, that's still used. That picture.
Yeah, dude, look at that guy. Look at that guy. He's kicking back. You can see him kicking off his boots. He's like, the hard day's work. But I refresh with a Coca-Cola.
Oh yeah,
Right?
it's.
And you see how subtle the advertisement was back then, right? It was classy, and they put a lot of effort into it. You
Oh,
know what I mean?
some advertising. I mean, especially for especially when they use comedy or well, actually some imagery can be good too. Like it holds up now, even if I just don't care about the product at all. I like the creative efforts that came out of that.
Yeah.
Uh, go.
And it's strange, because I feel like this is the real problem with advertisement today, where it's like they don't really have they can't connect to people on an emotional level, right? Because they're like, you're just trying to sell me something, right? Whereas before, they put extreme effort and money into like no, we gotta really grab them. You know what I mean? And that the advertisement is very subtle. It's classy. You know what
It
I
doesn't
mean?
have to be. Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess they. That's probably a problem with the system, but the. I mean, when I think of my favorite ads, they always have something kind of.
Human,
It's like they're
right?
entertaining first, advertisement second, and the thing
Exactly.
is, probably the people in charge of ads either don't know how to do this or else don't appreciate it. That's actually more effective because if it's entertaining and you really like it, you're going to remember it fondly, and then
Exactly.
that'll be associated with that ad. Like I was explaining to my wife the other day, there was she was telling me about a dream she had where like this robotic arm was like moving the road or something. I forget. She went into a lot of detail on it. I probably got details wrong, but it kind of reminded me of an ad I saw with Shaquille O'Neal where it had him like in the future. He has gray white beard, and he's talking to some kids. They're asking, "Oh, what did basketball used to be like?" And he's saying, "Well, we used to just take a." Drink the whatever the sports drink was, and then the game would be a
Yeah.
breeze. And then it says that was, and the kids were like, "Oh, well, that was before like the I forget how high tall basket, or the 100-foot long court, or I'm getting the 100-meter long court."
It was like in
And
the
then it
80s or
says, yeah, no, it
90s.
used to be not even close. It says, but yeah, he said the game used to be a breeze, but that was before they invented the moving basket. And then you see an image of like the basket kind of moving around while the guy's trying to dunk it, but he misses because it's. And that
Mhm.
was just a funny commercial, and it was imaginative, showing this kind of alternate reality of basketball. And I still remember that, even though it probably came out in the '90s or something. I'll have a
Yeah.
link on it later when we put this on YouTube. And what
I
the
I think it's cool. I think what's cool about it is that it's creating a narrative.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
telling a story. Yeah, we're seeing Grandpa Shaq in the future. I think the year is like 2044 or something. Talk about how basketball used to be, and like the normal things in the future are this. They've changed the court because the sports drink is so good that the players are too good at the game, so they need to make it harder. It was
Yeah,
a fun
that is an
concept.
interesting concept though.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
I
and
I
there's
would I could
loads of
see that.
commercials like that, or like more effective ones. Uh, Geez, the chat might have some good examples, some of their favorite commercials, and like,
But see, like I feel like that's the idea though, right? Like that there is a humanity, right? A story to tell, right? Whereas I
well,
feel like in today's ads, it's like they're all trying to like be your friend in like a creepy way. They're like, oh, State Farm, we're your friends. It's like you're
they had
taking
that
money.
stuff in the old days
You're
too.
you're an insurance company. You know what I mean? Right?
And
And
you
like,
mentioned insurance. I had
yeah,
Snoopy earlier. Was it MetLife had a contract with Peanuts or Charles Schultz to show Charlie Brown on insurance commercials? Like, so
yeah.
yeah, because
And
kids are
that's
really
way more
interested in.
appealing, right? You know what I mean? That's than like someone being like, hey, aren't we friends? You know, you and me. Like I saw an ad where there's like a doctor, and he's like literally miming everything you say perfectly, right? And it's like, oh, get a doctor that speaks your language. But to me, it just comes off as really creepy,
Oh yeah.
and like how are you miming me exactly? And like I'm sure like on the board or like the doctor himself was like, this is a really good idea, you know, like this is good. Oh, we're speaking your language. It's like, no, like if this was like a horror movie and someone was doing that, it would be creepy as hell, dude. You know what I mean? And like it just shows that like there's a disconnect between these people and the person they're trying to get to. You know what I mean?
And you never know where in the chain that's happening too, because I mean,
Mhm.
actors could very almost an actor could almost certainly get the kind of emotional range you're going for, get pretty close.
Yeah.
So they're following directions on this. Now the director, is the director really in control, or does he have a suit behind him saying, no, not like that, like this? So the director
Yeah.
is really could just be following orders almost, for
And that's what stifles creativity.
oh
It,
yeah,
like
that's not just
when
limited to commercials. That happens
yeah.
like anything with a big budget now. Movies, games, more popular music. I mean, it's
Give me a second. I gotta close my window.
no sure, no problem. Let's see what the chat's. Yeah, yeah. People were mentioning head on applied directly to the forehead commercial. My memories are fuzzy on that one, but that one was just kind of surreal. It's one of these things that where it might, if I'm remembering it correctly, it's one of these where it's humorous and wasn't intending to be, but it's executed in such an awkward way that it becomes that.
Yeah. And see, like that's the thing. Like when like I feel like a good director or like someone like who actually cares about the creation, they will make wild calls, dude, sometimes.
Oh
Right? They're like,
yeah,
oh, this is working. And so like something out of nowhere will pop in, you're like, dude, that works. Right there. Boom. Do use that. You know what I mean?
or sometimes it's
And
experimental. Like,
yeah.
well, I think well, commercials. A famous example of that was Quiznos, where they had these mascots that were muskrats, but they were arranged in like you know how if you were to like cut out a magazine and like you cut like the eyes from one photo and cut the mouth from another and then you kind of paste it together.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
like that, but except animated. So it was creepy, but at the same time, it was like weird enough to. It
Yeah, to
wasn't
grab.
like so creepy to turn off everyone, and then they were singing in these weird voices, and it was bizarre, and that stuff got into your brain. Yeah, here, I'll put that. In yeah, Quiznos subs ads or Quiznos rats, something like that.
This reminds me of did you ever play Grim Fandango?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like going to the living world
Okay.
in Grim Fandango. I thought that
Yeah.
was real clever how they did that because, things are kind of like normal but stylized, like a Day of the Dead parade, uh,
Yeah, I got an image right here if you wanna
paper mache.
pull it up.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, yeah, we can pull that up. Okay, open link, and yeah, But when you go to the real world, yeah, when you go to the land of the living, because everything takes place in the land of the dead in the game. When you go to the land of the living, everything's frozen and it's like that, and it's just so often distorted. I thought that was a real clever way to illustrate the difference between the land of the dead and the living in that.
Yeah, and like in a way, it's like, yeah, I don't think you would want to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not if you're dead.
If you're dead, you're like, oh, dude, let me go somewhere where it makes sense, dude. Where
Yeah,
there's skeletons.
it's abstract and freakish, but it was, and they're
Yeah,
going for all this kind of like 1950s pop art that's just been warped beyond
yeah,
recognition, kind of.
and like, see, that's cool because like the creators saw it and they were like, dude, this is like weird, right? And like when you're a creator, you trust that because you feel that that's weird. Someone else will be like, oh yeah, dude, what the hell? You know what I mean? Right? And that kind of, okay, so this also speaks to a concept that I wanted to talk about, right?
Sure.
Where maybe you could pull that down so we could be human
Yeah,
again.
I already have. There's like a 30-second delay between what you see
Okay.
and something like that.
So um Robert Henry, or Robert Henri because he's French, right? He was a famous painter who he wrote this book called hold on, let me see. I actually have it right. The Artist's Spirit, right? And in it, he speaks about this concept of, it's called the Brotherhood of Man, right? And basically, the concept is that like um, you need to trust your own instinct when it comes to the relatability of something, right? Or the connotation of something, where like you're like, oh, I see like this flower, and it to me it looks so beautiful, right? And you're like, well, will this look beautiful to other people, right? And you need to be able to trust your senses that that someone else will find it beautiful because you find it beautiful, right? And that is the brotherhood of man, right? It is this this kind of like relationship that we all share on a subconscious level, that like we kind of like agree like, oh, this looks like horror, or this looks beautiful, or you know what I mean? And that you
Yeah.
could trust within your own instinct that someone else will feel that way. You know what I mean? And so like there's a that creates a connection between all of us. You know what I mean? And that, like, you know, that idea itself is just beautiful in its own right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it can vary on the. I would. It can vary on the person both ways too, because some people are gonna have instincts that are gonna be off, like for
Mhm.
most others watching. But at the same time, you can have stuff that's gonna be weird for a lot of people, but then for other people, it's gonna connect with them exactly. And like
Yes.
whenever I make videos, if there's something I personally think is funny, even if I realize not everyone's gonna get it, I leave it in there, because, and I figure even for the people who don't get it, it's gonna, in my case, that can kind of add to
It's very momentary,
the
right? So,
mystique a little bit. Yeah, like I'm taking a quick detour, so I wonder what was that, and then like, okay, well, back to the back
mhm.
to what we are following. I think I heard is it Kevin Smith, the guy who directed Clerks, Mallrats. He said if like he would love to have it. He loves having a joke in there that if there's in the theater, there's only one person who it could be there's only one person who's going to get it and start laughing, but he said that's fine, and uh, I'm definitely a fan of that. Yeah, like with the relatability, I would. This is just an idea that popped into my head. Another movie example. Was it the Tommy Wiseau, The Room,
Yeah.
where it's known as like one of the one of the worst movies. However, it's one of those that's so bad it's entertaining. However, he
Mhm.
probably actually I don't know much of the history. He probably didn't make it intending it to be that way, but he's probably someone who was trusting his instincts also. Or one I do know of is another director, Ed Wood, who is known for making like lots of bad
Oh yeah, yeah,
movies.
yeah, yeah. I know about him.
And
Yeah.
the thing is, he had a genuine passion for it. He was. This wasn't just him phoning it in. It's just that his perception, well,
His
might have an
feel
actor
for art.
bump into a wall with the wall as a prop for like a rock a stone dungeon or something, and
Mhm.
the whole thing shakes. It's like no, that's fine. Like like it's not necessarily clicking into his head what the problem is, but so
Yeah, but like even in his films, that there is a passion that comes through, right?
that's true though. Yeah, it might it might get changed in translation a bit, but you're right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's still
I know a lot
very
of
entertaining to see Plan 9 from outer space now, even if it wasn't, the way he intended,
yeah, it wasn't a classic, you know what I mean, right? And it seems like a lot of directors look at him as like like the guy who is like the the paragon of, you know, I have this creative passion, I want to go for it, and I'm going to go for it, right? And like whether it's successful or not, like the journey was worth it because that there was something, there was a result, there was something
Oh
that like
yeah,
could
you
be,
have to respect that. I mean,
you know
it's
what I mean? And you could, like, people probably laughed at him, right? But like there's some genuine energy in there. There's something that like we grasp onto, and now we remember his name. You know what I mean? Like whether
oh
he intended to or not. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Right? Because
it's
genuine creative passion is infectious, and like like whether it's like well executed or not, there's it's charming. You know what I mean? It has a charisma about it. You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah, yeah. I'd rather see for a lot of things. I'd rather for creative things. I'd rather see someone who's just putting all they have into it, even if it's just them
Not
tripping
that
and
good.
falling
Yeah.
down in the middle of it. But they were trying,
Hmm.
versus something that's kind of soulless and just doesn't have the same kind of energy
Yeah,
to
like
it.
this was made by a corporate board,
Yeah, yeah,
approved,
yeah. That,
and like, oh, this is the most, this is the mathematical formula for whatever is being created, right? And like it's see you see like how despite like really like caring about that uh or the creative process, people can feel that in the end result. Like people
yeah.
can see something and like that's soulless, dude. It's like that's not good. You know what I mean? Or like something that's bad, and they're like okay, like I know it was bad, but there's something there. There was like you could tell that they really cared about this project, and like you can almost like defend it in that manner. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
whereas you can kind of tell this was other stuff. This was product,
Yeah, like
where
oh, this was
it
made to sell, right? Like just think about the the Avengers game that came out,
oh,
right?
I'm not, I don't
Yeah, yeah.
really follow the
It was
Avenger games.
yeah. Exactly, right? It was a soulless, like money grabbing piece of shit. There was no creative genuineness to anything there, right? And people didn't like it. People didn't follow through with it. People like it didn't work as intended by the board, right? And they lost a shit ton of money, right? Just look at the Disney what do you call it? The Disney remakes. You know what I mean? As a clear
Yeah,
example.
I watched one of them, but it didn't. I was trying to, I was struggling thinking like, what's the point of this? Like,
Yeah, it didn't capture the heart. It didn't capture your imagination, right? And that's another thing. I feel like drawings are infinitely more charismatic and charming than the real thing. You know what I mean?
oh
Like, because
yeah,
that's
or
why we're so drawn to animation, to things like anime, right? Because a drawing can express way easier and more like better than like like you than something real. You know what I mean? Even an actor who see because like you see how acting is more like you have to be able to be subtle and do something small, right? Whereas animation is about expressing it to the next level, right? Like with your guy who was like screaming, from getting hit, by this wild animal, right? And like it's charming. There's something really there's something there. You know what I mean? And that kind of goes into something that I wanted to talk about as well, is which is like, it could be a small thing, but like this is my problem with AI art, right?
oh yeah,
And like I think at the end of the day that like the AI will fail. Okay, it's cool now as like a concept, right? But when you look at the work, it's not charming. It doesn't have a heart to it. It doesn't have like lack besides just lack of soul. right? It doesn't have an intention. It's just mimicking like algorithm, blah, 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 right? And then spits out an image, right? And whenever I find AI art, I just find that it's lacking. It's lacking. There's something missing. You know what I mean? And you can't really connotate what that is. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess
Right?
it depends. Like, how do you define fail, though? Is
I
when you
would say
say
I would say fail as in like it has no intention. There is no like you're not communicating anything.
not like fail as
You know what I
true
mean?
art, or is
Yeah, as like yeah, as true art and as a creative work, right? You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying that like, AI art is bad in its like ability to portray something, right? It's actually could be very good at that, right? But it fails in the like like it doesn't have something deeper. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It is all surface. You know what I mean? There's no story being told. I mean you could create a story for it, but it doesn't reach to you. You know what I mean? You don't feel it. You know what I mean? That sense of awe that I was talking about earlier can never be created within an AI art. You know what I mean? It doesn't have the human like need, you know what I mean, or the human feelings that would allow it to uh, create that connotation. You know what I mean?
yeah. Several thoughts. I was trying to think of like how to explain it. It's like it's not that. Sort of lost my train of thought again. It's more like you say like it's not human. The thing is, it's almost just following like instructions in a
Following
way.
order.
Like yeah, I mean, like I have several thoughts on it. Like I'd say like today, right now, most AI art I've seen when it's just like pure AI, like generated without.
Yeah.
It's not like an AI used to like enhance something like the texture in the background or something.
Hmm.
Like it does have kind of, I mean, for lack of a better word, a bit of an uncanny valley feeling to me, where because
Yeah.
artists have their own styles and can have imperfections and that sort of thing, but the ones I see from AR when I know it's AI art, or sometimes I can tell, some I might not be able to. Uh, it just feels like very slightly creepy, like very very slightly,
Yeah.
not, but
Yeah.
in the same way, Uncanny Valley of a
there's something off, right? There's
yeah,
like
yeah. It's and maybe in time they sort that out. Even for all I know, I have no idea like how deep they can go on that sort of thing, or if that's even desirable for the companies running this sort of thing. How because again,
yeah.
if they're looking at this as just product, then and if this is good enough, then yeah, they might refine some things, but they're not gonna devote like years worth of resources trying to get
Yeah.
those extra details that maybe we notice that average person buying a product and they want this
Yeah.
art on the cover won't, that sort of thing.
What I would say is like whether like that succeeds or not, it remains to be seen because people have their own preference, right? But what I'm saying is like it will never create a lasting work, right? It will never it will never make something where you look at like all the paintings that were made in the Renaissance that we keep to today. You know what I mean, right? It will like no one's ever gonna hang an AI art piece and be like, this is a masterpiece of AI that like we cherish as humanity cherishes and deems as like this very important work to our history. You know what I mean, right? Or let's go on like a smaller example, right? Like let's say like we make an AI generated movie, right? Like that will never stand up to like something like a Citizen Kane or like a just a like even more recently what is it called Maverick, what is it called
Well,
Top Gun Maverick, right? Yeah.
what the Mel
Top
Gibson
Gun.
one?
No, the new one with Tom Cruise.
Oh, I didn't know there was a new one. Okay.
Yeah, Top Gun Maverick,
Oh,
such an
Top Gun
excellent
Maverick.
film.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking of just Maverick. Yeah, Top Gun. Yeah,
No,
that
no, no,
one
yeah,
was.
Top Gun.
Yeah,
Do you watch?
well, I guess my I'd say in the present day, I agree with you. In
Yeah.
the future, I have no idea. I could see this because not just like I get the concept you're talking about 100%,
Hmm.
but I could also see like I'm imagining like there were similar discussions like around the Industrial Revolution time when like everything was handcrafted,
Yeah.
and sometimes art would be put into that, and if like say somebody made a table and like they had like engravings of like the like say like animal legs or had like a face and other
Hmm.
things of I
Yeah,
don't
and
know,
then they could
or just had a different
automate
had its own kind of unique style to the carvings of like
that. Yeah.
wood or something like that. Wouldn't even have to be that out there, and they would think, well, people are gonna want this like mass produced thing, except for just like cheap things. And now it's like a lot harder. You have to go out of your way to get something that's like really kind of customized and artistic for something
Hmm.
like furniture or and things like that. But at the same time, that's serving a functional purpose.
Yeah.
However, for
It's
some
not a creative
people,
effort.
they're
Yeah.
just looking for like a movie to kind of get them excited or make them laugh. And maybe in the future, the AI version is good enough that it does that,
Yeah.
or it just had like a minimum of oversight by a human to see like, okay, yeah, this mostly makes sense, and they're just pumping it out as product. I have no idea. Like it's
All I have to say in response to that is, if you look like, okay, so there are things that like are made that, like, okay, let's say like let's look at the Marvel movies, right? They're pumping out like mass produced, right? And like, some of them are successful, right? But like the thing is like the more you separate the artist from the creation, the lower the quality will be,
yeah.
right? And as a result, people become disconnected with it. You know what I mean?
And even well, I mean, for my tastes,
Yeah.
even even like the Marvel movies, I kind of like. I think in one of the game dungeons, I gave something a rating of cheeseburger. In other
Yeah.
words, like like if you're looking for something to entertain you, it's like fine, it gets the job done, for that night or
Mhm.
something. But for other people, it's gonna differ. I can't think of any Marvel movie where I was just like I'm just blown away by that, and like this is one of my all-time favorite movies. And but I mean,
Yeah.
especially for kids, I think, or younger people, that might not be the case. I don't know. I'm kind of seeing like the mass-produced formula from it,
Yeah.
whereas with like when I think of like some of my favorite movies, I almost forget. I almost don't even think about like the structure of it, or the acting, or the direction. It's because I'm just so engrossed with what I'm watching.
Mhm. That's what I'm trying to say. Like they could use the AI to create these mass produced, pieces of shit, right? And then like, but something that it was, handcrafted, well directed, something that like people really care about will always win out, right? It will like what like for me, like I when it comes to AI, I'm not scared of it, right? Because I'm in my eyes, I'm like, because like this doesn't just apply to art; it applies to music, writing, and everything, right? Now AI is attacking everything, right? That's why we have those big writer strikes in Hollywood right now, right? And all I have to say is that like though it may mimic, though it may try to like, of course, in the future we don't know what's gonna happen, right? But it will like I'll be afraid when AI can make Breaking Bad do. Okay, I'll be afraid when it can make like a show or a story that was really compelling and I loved it and I felt the heart in it, I felt the emotion, and they were like wow, it's a 10 out of 10 movie, and it was all AI. Like that's when I'll be scared. You know what I mean?
I,
But
I'm
for right now, that's theoretical. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I mean, I'm not. To me, that I'm putting that in the unknown because I'm trying like to not to underestimate it, but I don't think I don't think we have to worry about that in the near future. And
No.
yeah, I'm not scared of AI either.
And,
I mean it
and what I
is
think
going to cause problems, but I just see it as turning up the dial of this to problems we already had in
yeah,
the first place. That
exactly.
you know,
And I think like at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, like the AI will be used by creatives You know what I mean?
I
To
think
kind of like maybe help automate, like I
yeah,
remember you talked
I
about
think it could
AI.
become
Yeah.
a similar relationship to something like Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where you know you can
Yeah.
Photoshop some things very quickly, but you know unless you're going for kind of like a cheap well, it works with comedy, but you know, unless you are going for like a super cheap aesthetic where it's really obvious it was photoshopped, you know, um, AI is probably going to be similar. Where it's a tool that might have use for you know some scenario to enhance the
Mm-hmm.
main art, that to kind of buttress it up, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
And
that's
the
where
thing is,
like the best art's going to come from with AI
yeah,
is where an artist realizes this is a tool. So
yeah, and that you have to use it in conjunction with your own creative, ability, right?
I think there was an
And
article where I'll have to dig it up, where a game designer did that as like an experiment, or they were either a game designer or else they were like maybe environmental artist for a game, where they were kind of experimenting with what they were able to do, and apparently it floored the reviewer who was looking at it. I'll have to pull that up. But in other words, this was somebody who knew what they were, an industry vet, kind of experimenting with AI, and the the results were interesting.
and another point that I want to make, right, is that like they people are saying like, oh yeah, well like I see this comment says modern media is garbage slop anyway. I say give AI a chance, right? I would say in
The
response to
big
that,
stuff, the big stuff
yeah,
that you're more likely to see, there's more of that, you know.
yeah, I would say that like um you know if if humans can produce something that doesn't reach you and is like corporate slop, right? Imagine what a machine under the control of a corporate head would produce for you. Okay, it's just now it's just like abstract, like kind of like it's just absolute crap. You know what I mean?
Well,
Right?
I would push back against modern media being garbage. It's that you have to hunt for it is the thing.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just more of everything now, and the stuff that makes it to the top tends to be like lowest common denominator, and
Yeah.
or there's a term I've heard, minimum viable product. You know, where the
Yep.
idea is it has to be good enough that people will pay for it, but just minimum effort and cost to hit
I,
that
I'm
level is
I'm sure for maybe like a couple years we'll have a couple like AI generated like movies or product or whatever, right? And then it's like, we're gonna realize like this is crap, dude. This is not good, right? In fact, I heard that in the newest Marvel show, I think it's like Secret War or something, or Secret Insurgency or some shit like that.
I don't know.
The entire intro was AI generated, right? And they got massive backlash for it, right? Because it doesn't look good. There's something like, and it's supposed to be like, oh, it's because you never know who's a spy and who's like what, and like are things that what they appear, right? But it just looks like it just doesn't look good. There is that uncanny feeling. There's that like,
Yeah, yeah.
like, there's something like I don't like look that. So like the human reaction is to reel at AI, whether it's like perfectly evident or not. You know what I mean? Right? Is that
Yeah,
there's
yeah. I
something.
like the times I'm like more comfortable with it, like visually from like a media
Yeah.
standpoint, is when it's like a little more obvious that's what they're doing, and it's kind of meant to be humorous with it.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, there is. But see, I could see this changing too, because yeah, I think right now there is that subtle creep factor to it. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's not so subtle. But well, but I guess that could work for situations where you are trying to make something scary or creepy. You know,
Yeah. Or
it could be a
something
tool for
uncanny.
that. You know, to
Yeah.
yeah, like let's say you were doing like a suspense thriller movie, and you wanted everyone to seem like slightly off. You know, then it actually plays to its strength. But
Hmm.
like, well, we've had that with computer graphics for a really long time, where that's where the uncanny valley term got popularized with, you know, that they would seem like almost human but not quite, and that would be creepy, you know. But then
Yeah.
there's some CGI I could not tell the difference now, like for some shots that I'm there staring at it, looking for problems, and I'm just not seeing it. Now those are like
Mm.
really big budget ones where they went all in
Yeah, where they put a
trying
lot
to.
of effort. But
Yeah,
the thing
like
is
well,
with
the one I bring up a lot was in one of the Terminator sequels, which I thought
Mhm.
the movie wasn't that good at all. But there's one scene where they're showing like an '80s Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he walks up and starts talking. And I'm thinking, I am not seeing. I'm looking for the to tell that this is CGI, and I'm not seeing it. You know.
Mm. But you see, the thing is, there was a human hand behind it,
Yeah. Oh
right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh,
There
I
there
think
was
that
someone
shot
who
took him like a
made that
year or
animation.
something.
It's like,
Like.
does that work? Does that feel right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and also I
oh,
realized they had a home advantage in that they were recreating a scene where an actor was pretending to be a robot, so that probably worked in their favor.
yeah, and so I would say that, like, you know, I'm sure like technology will improve, right? And like the AI will get better at more feeling, a little bit like less uncanny for people, right? But at the end of the day, I feel like there is something within us that's like primal, that sees it as
Yeah,
like there's something wrong, right? Or like, here's how I describe it. So like there's AI art and like it'd be really good, right? But it feels empty. Like it's like, you know what I mean? It's like you like there's a piece of paper and you're just it's like it's hollow behind it, right? Whereas if I look at like your art, your little kid art, it feels solid. Like you're like, whoa, there's something there, and there's something really like, there's something about it that feels human and like that you can grasp onto and relate to. You know what I mean?
well, if I want to get dystopian on you,
Yeah.
there's a possibility we think that way because we've grown up around real art, you know. Whereas if
Yeah.
someone being born today or later
Yeah.
even
It's just
is only
inundated.
exposed to AI art, they might have
Mhm.
a familiar a familiarity with it, and they don't have these kind of creep factors that we have.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, that is a possibility. It's just that the thing is that we have all our great human works that already exist,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
that's true. You can,
like
I
unless we
noticed that
eliminated
now.
all the shows and all the things, there's gonna be like, oh well, I prefer that way more. You know what I mean? Right?
I've noticed that actually when I'm doing like older games, it's
Yeah.
like I can't. Part of me kind of likes how with older games you didn't have achievements, you didn't have like all these kind of like in your
Mm.
face
Yeah.
milestones and holding you by the hand stuff, and it's like a lot of them they were just like the game had to be fun, or had to be a, a, a good experience from it, and you can really kind of see even uh, it's hard to explain, but like I could kind of tell that the like again there's a certain purity to like older games because they were just trying to make the game good, and there was nothing else beyond that where they were trying to get like a trailer shot or again things that kind of jump up achievement or like microtransactions. That's a real big one. Stuff that kind of rips you away from like the game experience, and I can kind of see that. Whereas other things aren't as refined as modern ones, and they're not as good.
Mhm.
There's other things that are honestly not even present in the vast majority of new games because it was just a different approach to it, and I can
Yeah.
appreciate that. So yeah, that'll probably exist in art also.
Like
You-
there's like, the thing is, when it comes to creative works, people care about these like subtle things that they may not be calculating like consciously, but that there's something there that like with AR it's just missing. You know what I mean? It just doesn't have it, right? Like maybe I could feel that more because I'm an artist and I
oh
live in
yeah,
that
you're
world.
probably seeing
And,
six additional layers than I am.
and the thing is like, what's funny? Like AI has a style, right?
Yeah,
AI like it has its own style and you can recognize it. Whenever I see it, I'm like it's very easy to tell. You know what I mean? And like all I gotta say is like people who are in the art world, people who like consume art regularly, right? Like whether it's on Twitter or Tumblr or whatever, right? They could tell. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the industry is run by by art people. Like an art director wants an artist. You know what I mean? Right? And all I gotta say is like, okay, the
But
thing
does
is
the
AI.
producer want to pay for the artist? You know, that's
Well,
where.
then they'll have to fire the art director because
Yeah,
they're gonna be like,
yeah.
"We want
It's
a real person, right?" Because at the end of the day, when it comes to like let's say like you have a game, right? And you have uh a character like five characters from the same group, right? How are you going to tell them like, hey, I want these characters consistent in this style, and it's like, okay, like, well, now tell the AI to turn them around, right? You know what I mean? It's going to come up with a completely different look than what was previously generated. You know what I
yes.
mean?
Though I feel like we're still. These are all striking me as things that maybe we never solve that in the future, or maybe we do, and it gets.
Yeah,
But to your core point, I think that's still there. Like that, it's
yeah. Because
plus. I
like
think you made a point. I think earlier
uh,
before we did this, was that it's kind of only working from models that it's sort of absorbed. Also, it's like it can
yes,
come up with something new, but it's human brain's still more
it's a
complex. Yeah, you know.
mishmash of something that was there before, right?
Yeah, well, I mean,
And
it can come up. It, it gets fuzzy, you know, with that answer because it can come up with something that hasn't been done before, but it can only use references that it has experience with to make that. Now, maybe as
exactly,
that database gets larger and larger, it gets harder and harder to tell the difference. But
yeah.
or maybe
And
we
like
do start hitting like limits of what we can do with it also.
and in a smaller okay, so like I just thought about this right now, where it's like it's like the magazine like the human world that we just displayed for Grim Fandango,
Yeah.
right? They're basically doing that on a micro scale with the AI
Oh
art,
yeah.
right? And
Oh
they're like
yeah.
kind of mishmashing like art styles, beep, 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 beep,
Bring that
right?
up again.
And maybe that's what's causing the disconnect, right? That we realize that there's kind of like a mishmash of somebody else's style, previous works, right? And like though we can't really say exactly, and it looks right, there is this effect going on, right?
Well,
Not to
it
this
looks
level,
right in
really.
ways we're able to define. We're consciously able to define. You know, it could be
Mhm.
like on some really small level, something in our brain recognizes that this is wrong, but we don't. We can. A lot of us can never articulate it. You know.
Yeah, and like at the end of the day, like I know like see the thing is like here's the thing with tech, man, right? I feel like tech is like always very speculative, right? So we talked about this like with VR and stuff like that. Like, oh, we could make a whole world. We can make the metaverse. We could have like people talking office, and then on a practical level, like I don't want to wear this headset. This thing costs too much. This is stupid, right? And like I feel the same way about AI, where they're like
Yeah.
the AI could generate. We don't have to pay people anymore. We don't need writers. We don't need this. We don't need that. And then when it comes to the reality, it just they get hit with a brick wall, right? And
Yeah. Well, it's
and like of course
complicated
technology
because
makes that
you
up,
know
you know.
artistic because we're sort of meshing two different conversations here. One's about art quality, another one's
Yeah,
about like art as a product, you know. And
yeah.
with art as a product, I think that's absolutely going to make inroads on that with technology because it's
Mm.
a different objective. Its goal is to be good enough that people will pay money for whatever the product is, a movie or art
But
or packaging for another product that
yeah,
whereas art
but my
quality
argument,
that's a separate
yeah,
thing, but that's
yeah, but my
uh
argument is that it's like if it reaches a low enough quality, people will not want to watch it,
right.
right? Or people will not engage with it. Like I said, look at the Disney remakes, right? Those are actually made by people, right? And like, you know, like they people view them as very low quality, right? And thus they don't engage with it. Thus, Disney has a $200 million hole now, right?
Yeah.
So like imagine if an AI generated work was made and like like people are like they find out, people immediately reel from that, and they don't want to watch it, they don't want to engage, because people want that crafted thing, whether it's like handcrafted like in the 1800s, doesn't really matter. It's that there's the human intent, that there's the human verification of quality, and a story that engages you. Like, these are core things. These are not like, the corporations would love us to not have that, right? But we do. And when we see something that sucks and is low quality, we're like, I don't want to buy that. And then or I don't want to watch that. And then you tell someone like, hey, dude, this thing sucks, dude. And then boom, the thing's done. It's over. And they're down however millions of dollars. You know what I mean? I feel like that's really what we're seeing today in today's in like
Yeah,
the bigger
I mean,
media.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
but I also don't underestimate how much things could change in the future. It is kind of because like, okay, when we were talking about like
Because we never know.
great movies now, I think this is not just my imagination. Or I think like the ratio of movies, I think, wow, that was a great movie. I think it's lower now than
hell yeah.
like compared to like maybe like the 80s or 90s or earlier,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, I mean, there's always bombs, there's always good movies, and I think a lot of that is happening completely independent of something like AI. It's more just this is a business model, and the investors like safer things. Sequels are safer. Movies that follow this formula are safer.
Yeah. Remakes.
Remakes are safer. Uh, I guess what directors or producers that had like a success with this movie, which was a sequel to something else, even though it was kind of crappy, it brought in a lot of money, so that's a safe investment. So it's so I think we've seen a lot of like mainstream quality stuff go downhill. But going back to what that other person in the chat said earlier, I mean, with garbage stuff, I mean, I feel like for art, like if you're willing to look for it, it's a cornucopia of great art out there. I mean, that's been one of my projects, is going through these art sites and just browsing art I really like, and then just the ones I really like, I save as wallpapers that like so for the future I'm gonna have like hundreds of art that I can just hit a button and it'll randomly change to something else to kind of get more of that experiential. You kind of get to kind of inject more experiential art into my daily life. The kind of.
And see, that's the thing. Like, the reason I also bring up these corporations and the media is like, these are the people who would be using it and trying to use it as like the infinite content box, where we don't have to pay people or have creatives like kind of work on stuff, because now we could just use a machine and automate the creator. And the reason why I think that it's not the same as like, we invented the camera, right? It's like you're not replacing like the artist with a camera. You're replacing the person themselves, like the entity of a creation, right? And that's where I feel like technology can push too far, and like it's really, I don't think, super viable. You know what I mean? On a creative level, right? I'm sure somehow it could work for studios and stuff like that, but like at the end of the day, it just looks cheap. Okay, that's what we're gonna associate with AI in the future. We're just gonna see it as cheap, right? If you look at the NFT art, what does it look like? Cheap, right? It looks like low quality, cheap. You know what I mean, right? Of course, there's like you could hire an artist and make better art for NFT, right? But I'm sure people would prefer that over the stuff.
Yeah,
the AI generated stuff.
It's well, I was thinking the analogy you mentioned, the camera placing artist. For sure, that hurt some artists. If that was, if they were, well, the job thing, I think it will encroach on. But I mean, I have to imagine, if your job, like if you need like low common denominator art, like, well, I'm thinking of some, like, let's say for crime, like, if instead of having like a sketch of the crime scene or something like that, if we could have a photo, well, we don't need all this, we don't need all the extra art details for it, because we just need it for our purpose is totally different then. And
Exactly.
so if you
And
were,
the AI, the camera is useful, right? And that's where I feel like AI and like like even like blockchain and all that extra bullshit can be used more utilitarianly, right? With something that's more useful, right? And not like these scams and like you know what I mean,
for
right?
NFTs, I don't even know what the use is that's not already redundant. But the yeah, I mean that is used, but at the same time, there's art styles we like. I mean, I love kind of like a good artist doing like an oil painting or
Mhm.
something that looks like an oil painting to me
Yeah.
over a photograph. Yeah, like with these wallpapers I'm amassing, a huge chunk of them are like oil painting or oil painting styles. Like maybe they're done
Yeah.
digitally, like with like like a sketch pad. That's the kind of thing.
And
Um,
that's the thing, like that's just human preference,
yeah,
right?
and I love that kind of
Yeah,
style.
can't really
Well, I
take
mean,
preference away
like
from
what I have
people.
in the background here. Here, I'll hide us for a second. Let's see. Yeah, as you can see the full back. And the name of that is, let's see. I think it's called River Landscape. I forget what I can. Oops. Shouldn't have. Okay, there we go. I can
See
maybe
that?
pull
See
up the.
that? See how
Yep.
instantly charming that image is? You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you look at it and you're like, oh, and it feels nice, it feels
Yeah.
home,
Yeah. Okay,
right?
that's by Jacob Philip Hackert. If people are, and I think the name of that is River Landscape. I was just trying to pull up some like
Yeah.
Renaissance era art for a background for it, and I kind of like the look of that one. It's yeah. Here, I'll
And
hide
like,
us again.
people see AI as this like magical thing, right? When in reality, if you're trying to generate a good image, you're spending hours generating and generating and generating, and like you're like, oh, maybe it's not good. I just like right? And like it just doesn't work when you're like, hey, uh, can you draw this thing? And they're like, oh yeah, boom. You're like your idea with the atlas, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like oh, this idea like instantly it was portrayed, and it only really took 20 minutes, right? It only
In
took like a
my
little bit.
case, the sketch took me like a minute to do. It was just a real crude proof of concept thing.
And like that's where the power of artists is just so much superior in speed, right?
I remember
Where
being
like
surprised. I wasn't this
yeah,
was just I was hoping to like break through a little bit. Instead, it was just 180. Like I was like, wow.
yeah. So I think on an industry term, artists are just more efficient at it, right? Like you want to produce something that has soul, looks right, is made in a quick amount of time. Like that's another thing. That's another aspect that these that like the producers don't even think about. That time is more important than the generation. You know what I mean? As much money as you save, you rather just pay the artist to get the results that you want, right? Because it's not like they're like super lacking for money. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but
um,
there's no limit for how a lot of them operate.
yeah, yeah, no, of course, of course. But what I'm saying is like on a practical level, usually the artist is the better choice, right? And like I'm sure people will learn this. I'm sure there's companies that are cheaper and would be rather spend the time to create these AI generated works. But it seems that like people in general reel back from AI generated work, and uh, it's just slower. It's just slower, right? Whereas like you're like on the fly, the director's like, hey, I want this scene with these elements, and an artist can like do like a quick little like sweat sketch and like something like this, and they're like, yeah, 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 and then boom, you have something that's valuable in seconds, dude. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
something I wanted to. I I don't even want to get into the debate on like
Mm.
value for commercial products and stuff because I could that one might be
That's its
tough,
own.
and
It's
that is
lame,
a
right?
lot of
Who cares,
unknowns. But
right?
someone wanted to loop back to what you said earlier. Like I mentioned this to you earlier, but I wanted to say on the stream too was that when you talk about like when you see really good art that like
Mm.
just kind of speaks to you personally, I was thinking this is the sort of thing I haven't given probably anywhere near as much conscious thought to it as you have, but the feeling I get in my head from that is like this is probably the closest I'm gonna get to like the meaning of life. Like so,
Yes. Yes.
like that's
You
the
are-
feeling I get from like really good art. And it can be in different
Yes.
mediums, and it's gonna vary for different people what does it for them, you know.
It's that
But
divine and sublime
yeah,
feeling, the transcendent, where you're like, you're like, oh, I rise. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Right?
yeah. Like, well, actually, kind of a funny aside. Like, I'm in the past, I've sort of struggled trying to organize music by mood, and one of the
Hmm.
moods I came up with was when when I hear this music, it makes me feel like I'm starting to fly. Like that's the image. Like I can't even explain why. I'm sure there's some technical analysis people could do, but this music makes me feel like that. Like so.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the
Yeah.
transcendent, dude. That is the divine,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I'm saying that AI can never tap into. Okay. Right? Because here's how I see it, right? I don't want to bring it back to
Yeah,
AI,
yeah.
right? But
I don't know if the
I look
audience
at
is sick of this or not, since I had some other AI chats. But
listen, dude, I am sick of AI.
okay,
Okay.
well, we
But
can-
here's how I look at it, right? Like, okay, so we are of nature, right?
right.
And like that gives us a connection to the divine, right? Machine is of man, right? So it can never be of nature. It's you know what I mean? That there's a separation between these things, right? And because we are of nature, we have the connection to the divine, the connection to the mysterious, right? The beyond force that we can only really touch or not like or grasp at, but we can't get to it, right? And so that's why I'm like, it'll never work out. These corporate dreams are just are dead, okay? You know what I mean? Right? Like sure in the future it'll get better, but like at the end of the day people have preferences, dude. You know? At the end of the day, like people want to feel that transcendent feeling. You know what I mean? Right? And that's where
Yeah,
great
yeah.
art,
I guess
great
what I,
work really, you know
my
what I
only
mean?
response to that would be I'm someone who's willing to accept this, that there's going to be like a certain amount of dystopia in my
Mhm.
life, one way or another. So if an
I
AI
mean, yeah, well,
got
I mean,
better
look
and
at the
better and
time.
better,
You know what I mean?
so
Look at the times we live.
let's say hypothetically it gets to
Yeah.
like 99% of that feeling, then I could see myself going, it's like, well, this is it's better than not having this feeling. So, but I fully acknowledge this is like a dystopian kind of view of it also.
Yeah. And
So,
theoretically.
and it of course it's better to have like the authentic, handcrafted feeling where this artist is going for something that is transcendent.
Yeah.
But you know, I can see things getting weird in the future.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sure. Yeah, but the thing is, like, another thing is that we just discussed this where we have preference, we have, you know what I mean? Like, there's the brotherhood of man, where there's that connection between us, right? And these corporate idiots, they can't touch that. They don't know what that is. They don't know what that means. You know what I
and
mean? Right?
honestly, I think a lot of them, for especially for bigger businesses, might be literally high functioning sociopaths because
Yeah.
that can be an asset if your only goal is to maximize money, or maximize profits. So they might literally be, not only might they not understand it, some of them might literally be missing some parts to kind of make that connection to
Yeah.
it,
They
or,
have that empathy, right?
so
Whereas I feel
it's,
like artists are the opposite, where they actually feel this very intense, like maybe on an emotional level connection, right? And like on an empathetic level, you know what I mean, right? Like, and who we are shapes how we do that. But I feel like the artist and the creator is tapped into that. You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah,
It's
that
tapped
was
into that.
something else you mentioned earlier. I wanted to comment on when you were talking about how like art, some people see art as like useless or not necessary.
Yeah.
The way I look at it, if you're in a survival state, well, even for some people, even in that state, but a lot of
Yeah.
people, if you're in a survival state, art is not the priority. Food,
Mhm.
shelter, making sure you're not going to die from something. However, if you can meet your needs, and again, for some people, it's even more important than that. Art is I see as like a highly desirable thing to have, you
Yeah.
know, one
Yeah.
in a culture or a society or anything like that. And for a lot of, I think a lot of people agree it's much nicer having art than not. You know, in fact, that's a
Yeah.
common way to portray dystopias is to have like
And,
have everything be utilitarian and absence of any sort of,
yeah.
you know,
And
aesthetic value.
the thing is that like, um, you know, like being creative doesn't necessarily mean that you're useless either, right? It's like, okay, so there was actually there's this show called like like man versus women like survival or something like that,
Okay.
right? Like that the that thing's like whatever, right? But there's an episode, or there's like this storyline where there's this guy, he's more creative, right? And there's two guys. There's a guy who's like, I'm very practical, you know, I'm very like, I got to be this, you know, like you know, it's very like you know, corporate, not corporate, but like, you know, like I'm very like all about practicality, right?
Yeah.
And he would give shit to this guy who was you know, he was more creative. He's like, you know, he's more like, you know, like more like an artist, right? And what he had a hunch, right, where he's like, he had this net that he wanted to make, right? Like, so he found this netting, and then he's like, no, this net can work, right? And he spent weeks working on it so that it would work, and for a long time it wouldn't catch anything, right? And you know, the guy was like, why are you working on that? You're stupid, like this is not practical, right? And because the other guy, he was a fisherman, he would catch fish with his rod, right? And like in total he caught about like 6 fish throughout the 6 weeks that they were there, right? And like on the last day of the thing, right, everyone was starving, right? And the guy, he brought out his net, right? And in the end it caught 23 fish, okay, right? And like even the guy who was like oh, he's like, I was wrong, dude, I was wrong, like this, like this guy really brought it in, he believed in it, he went against all my doubt and really brought something to the table, right? And that's the thing, it's like creatives have value in society, right? Because whatever works already can work, but we need to innovate, we need to make something new, we need
There's
to,
so
you know what I mean,
yeah,
right?
there's so many intangible aspects of it too,
Hmm.
because what if somebody's music helps keep somebody else going, you know, and they're doing something practical, you know, or
Exactly,
uh,
exactly.
yeah,
Because art inspires, it keeps you going, right? Like you know, I think what people really remember, right, like you know, when you're in like the dark, right, and you're like, "Ugh," right, like you remember things like would like, oh, would Batman give up, you know what I mean, would Superman give up, or what, like whoever your favorite
you
character
know,
is,
yeah. When
right?
I've been in like really stressful situations where I have like
Mhm.
a whole lot to do, like I'll have sometimes I'll have like some music themes I found like really inspiring just start playing in my head,
Yeah.
but like
and
it's
and
and it
and
gives me all
music,
sorts of imagery associated with that of, you
yeah,
know.
and music can really, like, see, the thing is like anybody who could say this about art, I'm like, well, what about music? Music is art, okay?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
call music, they call musicians artists, right? Because they are, because like creative works are significant,
Oh
they
yeah,
are important.
it's a different medium. That's what it is. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
And like, you know, people won't remember the guy, like the carpenter who built this house, but they will remember the great creators, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know, and that's the thing, like we, in a weird way, we uphold creatives higher than anybody else, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know, politicians exist or whatever, you know, there's important people, right? But like in our minds, in our hearts, we really care about like this musician, right? Or this creator, or like even you as a
I was
YouTuber, I'm sure
about to
someone
say
like
the
your,
only reason I'm
yeah,
even paying rent now is because that
yeah,
phenomena exists, you know.
and that
Uh,
people believe that there is value in creation, right? And the thing is like, um, the problem with like, and that's why I'm like, that's why artists are important, that's why musicians are important, right? We do serve a role, it's just a role that may not seem completely obvious right away, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
and going back a little bit to what you said about practicality,
Mm-hmm.
it's much more obvious if it's like I would say like the fishing net example you gave. That's probably more of an exception. it's much more obvious when it really is like at a primal level where no, we
Yeah.
need food today. We need a source of water today. But
Yeah.
most of the world isn't like in that level of survival. It's more about
Yeah. We have societies, dude. We
yeah,
live
yeah,
in, you know what I mean? Yeah.
and the thing is, once you get into practicality on that, it's like a lot of that's kind of arbitrary or can change or
And
maybe
can be
isn't practical in the long
automated
term
and
for
replaced,
what?
right? And can be automated and replaced.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly. And the thing is, like, right? Yeah, well, I mean, that's something that comes up a lot of time with like, with labor and how we look at work and jobs and careers. I mean, if you can have automation that's like, let's say we need like 80% less people to be, working at like producing essential goods, food or
Mhm.
supplies. Well, and then it's like, is it really practical to be like putting all of your time into something else that might get replaced also? Or, I mean, it's practical in the sense that we need, you need the money to exchange for goods to, pay rent, have a roof over your head. But a lot of that is also arbitrary. It's like we've decided this is that system, and that's been kind of inherited over time.
Mhm.
And in theory, you could change a whole lot of that as to how it works with like your shelter and how
Yeah.
food is paid for or something like. So it's like, when people say like, oh, only practical, it's like, well, for some things that's you can measure that. For other
It,
things, it's like,
it's shorter sighted, I would say.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, well, maybe, or for, if somebody claims they're practical, it's like, okay, well, fine. Let's say you do have a job and you are getting your needs met. Like,
Mhm.
okay. And then, but they're saying, well, no, I should be developing all these other skills to further my career. It's like, well, maybe, but like, what if those, those jobs dry up or become obsolete or something? Then that's
Yeah.
wasted time. Or let's say you're just all right. You're kind of where you want to be with a job. It's like, well, when you come home, what then? Like what?
Yeah.
Or, and I think this probably varies a lot depending on your personality, but because some people really do. Well, I think everybody does on some level needs like some meaning to keep them going on one way or another, and that's gonna vary a lot with what does it for that person. Some people it's just they know they want a family or something like that. Other people, I mean, they're only too happy to get away from their family, for and
Yeah.
it can, they're going to need meaning from something else. So yeah, I
And
think
where does that
meaning,
meaning come from?
yeah, meaning is a need. It's just not as
Yeah.
obvious a need.
Hmm. Yeah. And like I feel like that's definitely something that we see today where, I feel like um the older generation may have not really realized this, but I feel like the younger generation definitely sees like the writing on the wall where they're like working somewhere and they're like, this is a dead end job. This is not gonna get me anywhere. I don't feel fulfilled by this in any meaningful
Or if I
way.
work a lot
Yeah.
or harder, it's like I have 10% more income, but I'm still in debt for like the next 30 years.
Yeah,
Why do I really
I got
care? You know,
and
you know.
yeah, and like, and I hope, I'm speaking for like the younger people, right? Who are like maybe in their 20s or like, early 30s. You can't buy a house now, you know? You can't like the
I
things that
can't.
are so were taken by or for granted by the older generation, we cannot access anymore because of the cost, because of the greed of these corporations and like it's the greed. Okay, I feel like that's the real theme of the 2020 verse is too much greed. Okay, right? And we're gonna swing back and be like okay, we gotta have more altruistic, like motivations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Right? And like I don't know what's gonna happen.
well,
You know what I mean? Because
that's
we live in the greed verse. You know what I mean?
well,
But
I don't know if
we hope.
you, well, you might agree with me on this.
Yeah.
I feel like that's almost like a bit of a paradox because I feel like your average person isn't like a greed maniac Scrooge McDuck kind of thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of course, just
Collect
about everybody
things
wants
that
to
have
win
a
the
lot of purpose.
lottery, but that's because they probably have a lot of real world stresses that, could be alleviated by that.
Hmm.
Whereas like true greed is like money for its own sake, you know, where like, yeah, like if you're, let's say you have enough money to live out like your life or accomplish all your goals. This isn't most
Yeah.
people. I mean, but like in theory, and you're still obsessed with like earning even more money. Well, that's greed at that point, you know. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a full spectrum, but
And yet,
I
yeah,
feel
of
like
course,
that.
regular people don't really do that, right? And like, if anything, they're the ones getting pushed down
Yeah,
for that to
exactly.
happen,
That's why I say it's kind
right?
of paradoxical that I
Yeah.
think most people just kind of want to live their lives and kind of go through their own stuff that
Hmm.
motivates them. You know, it could be sports or love or you know arts. You know, who knows?
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna have their own kind of interest, or some people want to travel. You know, they have their own kind of goals and interests, and I feel like that's what most people are kind of tuned for, and they're kind of
Yeah.
for things that aren't really related to that. They're generally gonna follow the path of least resistance to some degree or another. You
And
know,
see, that really shows how much power and influence, like, um, these corporations have. Like, even over, like, like the political side. You know what I mean?
oh
Right?
yeah.
Where it's like, oh, we'll just pay them off, and like, oh, we give their son a job
I,
or whatever,
I
and
almost
they're
see
in your
it.
pocket
I
over.
almost view it all as this kind of same amorphous blob that kind of seeps into
Yeah.
different areas. But yeah,
And
that's
see,
what I mean. The people who are just obsessed with greed, I think that's actually a very small minority of just humanity in general. However, it's disproportionately felt because those types tend to be the most obsessed with like power or money, which can be power in itself.
yeah,
And so that kind of sets the framework for everybody, for a whole lot of other people that it falls under.
and
So it's an easy mistake. Well, I think it's a mistake to think that, like, oh, yeah, everybody's just greedy and this is how they
no,
are.
no,
It's
no,
like,
I'm not trying to go that
yeah,
direction.
I
I'm
mean, of
not trying
course
to go.
people can be greedy, but not on the scale that, like, shapes the course of history. You know, they're greedy in the sense that they want a second cheeseburger, you know, or something.
Yeah. I'm not saying that people are greedy, but we are feeling the effects of
Oh,
greed,
yeah, yeah.
right? And like, the thing is, like, maybe even the CEOs aren't that greedy or whatever, right? But they've built the machine that generates that greed, right? Like, oh, we gotta meet these quarterly things, We gotta
Yeah.
we
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
grow.
If they don't
It's,
act, even
yeah,
yeah. Let's say in theory, even if they're not, if
it's
they
not
don't
even up
act
to
like
them half
that,
the time,
then they can't.
you know?
Yeah. Sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah, it's like they don't like they may have like unleashed this monster that they can't even control, and it's just generating wealth and wealth and wealth, and it's sucking it from the regular people, right? We're
And it's
and
self-reinforcing too, because it means like the
yeah,
next generation, that system's going to favor the people who can act the same
yeah,
way. You know,
yeah. But
regardless
see,
of
the
how they
thing is,
feel.
the thing is like, um, when it comes to these big corporations and um, like I want to say more of the media companies and like the more creative companies, entertainment, right? I think that we're seeing like their slow descent into death, right? Or like, because the more uncreative works they produce, the more money they put into these giant mega movies that flop hard, right? They're still losing $200 million, right? That's not a small amount of money, right? And they do that a
Yeah.
couple times, and guess what? Look at Warner Brothers, right? They just they sold themselves because they made too many things that people didn't attach to. They lost so much money, and guess what? They got sold to Discovery, right?
Oh, okay. I didn't know
And
that.
that was like a huge juggernaut, right? You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
like whoa,
Yeah.
like Warner sold, and it's like yeah, because these things like it's a disease, okay? It's a
Yeah.
disease that's like reaching like a critical mass point where like they're just producing this slop. Nobody cares about it. Nobody wants to watch it, and they spend an exorbitant amount of money to make it happen, and they're losing a shit ton of money, and then boom, dude, and then they're down, right? And like the thing is, once another corporation absorbs that, right, it becomes like a tumor in their own organization, right? And then like the only real solution is to make good art, is to make good creative works. That's
Yeah.
the only real way you could come recover from that.
I mean,
You
yeah.
know what I
You
mean?
say they're dying, but at the same time, it can get weird too because
Yeah, of course. It could
okay,
get
like
weird.
let's say everything like Disney or something ends up
Mhm.
producing is just again, I'm with you on. I watched Beauty and the Beast one. I skipped chunks in. I was thinking this just has like no. This has very nice set design, and that's about the only positive thing I have to say
Mhm.
about it. It's like, I mean, it just has like none of the appeal of the original to me, or the. But anyway, let's say they just keep putting out flop after flop, you know, and they just
Yeah.
like can't help themselves. Okay, so they're in dire straits and kind of crash and burn. But then something else starts emerging that is that creates room for something that is creative that
Yeah.
does emerge. But see what
Yes.
happens is the dynamic after that
They
where
buy them
some
out.
investment, yeah, some the
Yeah.
suits like and investors see this like, all right, let's buy this company and like, okay, well, you know, I think we can make even more money than what we're making now doing all this creative stuff. Let's try for a few more like surefire things. And then maybe they get a couple hits. And so
Yeah.
I could see it being
I'm not gonna
cyclic
say I'm
with,
not trying to say that they'll die outright, but what
yeah.
I'm saying is that their power, like, in itself, like the way they're going, it checks itself. It you know what I mean?
It might,
Right?
but I guess I see it almost as
In the
being
favor of more
cyclic
creative and better works, you
with the
know?
cycles being shorter, maybe. Like, and it's like,
Mhm.
man, it's just, it could be chaotic. Because, I mean, well, with television, I think I mentioned in one of my video chats,
Mhm.
like MTV, when it came out, that was a pretty impressive creative force. You had lots of
Yeah.
like variety of videos, and the artist. This is kind of a new medium, you know, music videos. So
Yeah.
the artists were kind of at the helm for what was being done, and you had all kinds of creative things. And then they started to kind of fill in time with it because they couldn't have music videos all the time necessarily. And then you got
Mhm.
these weird creative shows with which is just awesome stuff coming out then. Like Ian Flux came out in that. That's one of my favorite shows ever. But
Mhm.
another one, Syphil and Ollie show, which was these sock puppets that came on late at night, and that's also one of my favorite shows. But they had other stuff like The Head, Beavis and Butthead, you know. So it's more like the creatives had more at the helm then. But then eventually that kind of got, it's like,
Yeah,
okay, well, this is
they get
too risky
too
or
far-fetched.
unpredictable with this creative stuff. Let's have more like sure thing product, and then that starts strangling it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
All I gotta say is like, okay, we look at okay, you know Disney is now like the giant word for a corporation, you know, whatever, right? The mask of Mickey behind, you know, corporate greed, right?
yeah.
But if you look and remember, Walt Disney was an artist, dude.
Yeah.
He drew. He was a creator. He had a dream, and he said, "I want." Like he even famously said, "I make the money to make the work." You know, like he cares more about the artistic product than the actual money that he's using to create it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, didn't he
And
start?
that
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to
whatever,
cut you off.
yeah, and that you know that force, his creative force, created this empire, right? So when people say that like you know drawings and art are worthless, I'm like, you know Disney, you know how that began with a drawing, dude. Okay, with a single drawing of this, you know, whatever character, you know what I mean? Right? And he took that momentum and made for years all these fantastic creative works for years and years. And now we're kind of seeing it peter out because the corporations have like, you know, devoured what was there, right? But at the end of the day, these things that get big, these things that are people are really interested in that inspire people are works by creatives, works that are valuable and have a soul to them and are interesting and evocative and relate to you, right? And that's just something that I feel like can never be removed from us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I think it's so important to realize that there is value in the artist. There is value in the creator, right? And at the end of the day, all these attempts to remove the creator, right? AI being like the biggest version of that, right? Will can never really like um, last in a meaningful way. You know what I mean? And I'm saying this. I'm not trying to say this as like an absolute thing. I'm just saying like based on our human nature, based on how we are, I think we can't really remove these things from us. You know what I mean?
You know, that
Right?
that brings up another point. You know, for dystopian stuff, you know, that only works if the dystopian society is functioning. If it's really
Yeah.
things are collapsing, you
Yeah.
know, past basic survival, then real art suddenly has a whole lot more value again, because then that's what's left. You know, like you said, that's kind of
That's
innate
what I
to.
mean. Mhm.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm like, you know, like these ideas of people like that, like, oh yeah, dude, your art is replaced. It could be automated. You know what I mean? It could be this or that, you know? And it's like, yeah, you know, like sure, you know what I mean? It's just gonna be cheaper and like whatever, you know what I mean? But have you heard a song that like just got you and you're like, that's by a person, dude, you know?
I was gonna say, if you're anywhere, for anyone watching too, if you're anywhere in like a near an urban area, you can spend long enough, you'll find graffiti art. I mean, that's just, I mean that's just the expression spilling over. Is the way I look at it. You know.
And as you look as like, you know, from when you were a child, art is part of our nature, dude. You know, is something deep locked in within us, you know. And like, you know, like you could say, like, even if like the world got decimated, we got set back a million years, a caveman could get a stick and like make a mark in the sand and be like, huh. And then like, you know, and like, what if I did this? Oh, I can make the mountains, right? It's like, it's primordial, dude. Okay, so you can't remove that from us. You know what I mean? You can't like say like, oh, this is not a core part of our humanity. You know what I mean? Right? Um, and I would say, like, when it comes to the transcendent, right? We have different ways of reaching that, right? Like I said earlier, I think, you know, for me, art is there to enrich in the senses, right? The world we live in today, right, and like the practical world brings you down. Okay, it
It
drags
does.
on you,
Yeah.
right? Like a head, like you're wading in a swamp and you're like chest deep, you're like, ugh, right?
It's a good
And
analogy.
what art and creative things do is that they lift you out of the swamp. Like you're like I'm free, dude. I am not in the muck, right? You know, for however long, like the duration of a movie, and then they're like, yeah, dude, you see that? Okay, like you got to believe in yourself, and then you're dropped back in the swamp. You're like, oh, great, you know. But now you have the belief. You know, you're like, maybe I could get out of the swamp, you know, and maybe that's just enough to keep people going. You know what I mean? And that's why it's so
Well,
important, dude.
even beyond keeping people
Yeah.
going, I mean, for me personally, that's part of the goal. Is to, yeah,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, enhance the senses, or whatever the term he was. I look
Enrich,
at it more than
enrich,
that. Like
man.
this is
Yeah.
like more like a gateway. You know, to some place like better in your mind. You know,
Yeah,
it's
beyond us, the divine,
yeah,
dude,
yeah,
right?
yeah. The divine,
And
as you
like,
put it. So
and like that's the thing. That's like I want to tell this idea to people, right? Like, because like you said, you don't even think about it, and you're a creative, right?
yeah,
But like,
I'm not consciously aware of probably even half of the methodology and analysis you were discussing earlier, or just the thought process.
but see, that's what I want to bring to people. That's what I try to do with my channel, right? It's more for artists who are in that and they just don't know how to sort it out, right? But it could be valuable to other people to realize that like there's like importance in meaning and there's importance in something deeper within us. You know what I mean? And like that the goals of the practical world are really the muck that's like holding you back.
and
You know what
and
I
some
mean?
of it's not even like some of it's not even some of it's the opposite of practical, depending on what time span you're looking at too. Because like, well, I mean, get off track a bit, but you know, with some companies, like let's say a company is putting out some product that is just tearing up the environment. Like it depends on like just
Yeah.
forests being cut down, or like ocean life being shredded or something like that. Well, yeah, that's going to make profit, and that's practical in like the here and now. But in the long term, this is just outright harmful.
Yeah.
So it's like, the individual only has so much control over that sort of thing, but that's why
But
when
we
you talk about like
collectively
practical and
feel that it's wrong.
productivity and
Yeah,
it,
I
it
would say. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, sorry, we have the latency, so we keep starting before. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that like you know we collectively care about that. You know what I mean? About the state of our nature, right? The state of the world, and like how we function with nature, right? And that's something that I feel like nature really inspires creatives, and like in a way nature is channeling itself through us to tell something to the world, right? Like whenever I make a landscape, whenever I stumble upon a beautiful scene and like that would be a beautiful painting, right? I capture it because like it's like almost by instinct, right? And like whatever that mysterious force is, right? The divine coming through us, I think is imbued with nature. I think nature is a part of it. You know what I mean? Right? The chaos of the universe is nature, right? And so because of that, it's like almost like nature is speaking to us and through us into the art, so that it could tell other people like, hey, dude, this just fucked up, dude. Or hey, this is beautiful. Isn't this worth preserving? You know what I mean? Right? And so it's crazy, man. It's crazy. Like, and that's so much more interesting than like, quarterly needs. You know what I mean? Or like, you know what I mean?
Well, it
Right?
depends on the person, but yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. Well, I mean, I think obviously for us, but
Yeah.
for the quarterly needs, that's something that like forces you to care about it because it's tied to getting your needs met, food and shelter and that sort of thing. But yeah, if you didn't have that, then if you didn't have to worry about that, then yeah, it becomes a lot less interesting. But I think I've mentioned this in one of my chats before. I mean, this might tie into your theory. At some
Hmm.
point, I think it was like in my 20s, like something sort of snapped in me. This might have been like the environment I was raised in, or something like that. That part of me, for some reason, I can't even explain why, just started craving, wanting to have like forest around me somewhere, like as part of like my regular life, either like daily or semi-daily, that sort of thing. And when I was living in an area, this used to not bother me, but when I was living in areas that just had none nearby, it would just bother me, like on a way that would just kind of resurface like every week or two until
Yeah.
until I finally had just regular access to like nature, like you were talking about.
It's why parks exist. It's why
Yeah,
things like we want to preserve the forest because we come from nature. We like humans for hundreds of millions of years lived in nature, surrounded by it.
yeah, it
And
could.
and like
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
only now in these like mega cities do we see like everything's man-made. You know what I mean? And so even in those places, they have things like I said, parks. Um, Maybe you have a plant right here. Nature, like it calls to us, dude. It has an importance to us. You know what I mean? And that's why, like we, the corporations are like, who cares about that? You know what I mean? But within our own deeper humanity, we understand that it's important. You know what I mean? We understand that, like, hey, I like seeing fish in the water, dude. Hey, I like seeing coral reefs. They were beautiful. You know what I mean? And like, that's the thing. Like, beauty in its own way is like a truth. You know what I mean? Like true beauty. You know what I mean? Like the beauty of a flower, right? There's truth in that. And why is there truth in that? Because like we all feel it, and like it's something beyond us. It's the divine telling us like there's something to that. There's something more. And it's like that's the thing. It's this mysterious force that we can't really. It's like you know what I mean. But what I'm saying is like we should think about it more. We should look at things with a heightened lens.
That's a good point. That this should probably be emphasized more because
Mm-hmm.
this is. I feel like this is a message that it gets buried a lot. you know.
Nobody talks about it, right?
Yeah,
That's
I hadn't thought.
again, that's why my channel exists. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah,
I'm,
yeah,
I'm
but I mean, this almost should be like alongside
like on.
other,
Yeah,
yeah, like essential things, like clean water, food, shelter. Okay, that's its own level. I feel like this should be directly after that,
yeah, like
almost.
meaning, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Important beauty, right? And like that could that could save us one day. You know what I mean? Right? But we'll see. We'll see what we live in the worst universe, so we'll see what happens.
Oh no,
Right?
I don't think we're the worst, but I feel like we're maybe a notch or two below that. Uh,
Yeah.
The,
We're
the
definitely in like the crazy times. You know what I mean? Right?
yeah,
But
with
that's
the
where, I feel like, art and creation is at its most important during times of dire need and dire straits. We need something to inspire us.
oh yeah,
You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah,
Right?
it's
Um,
important to have hope for something. You
if
know.
you look at like World War II, like illustrations, it is propaganda, but it inspires, right? It makes you feel something on both sides of whatever conflict. You know what I
Some of
mean?
those are still used. I think there's this one where this GI is holding out his hand and he's like counting different things. I'm not even sure
Yeah.
what the original source on that is,
Yeah,
but,
let me show you a cool piece.
there's one of my favorites I still remember is it's like what has this guy in a car that says like when you ride alone you ride with Hitler or something, and they have like this ghost image of Hitler in the passenger side. The idea being that you're wasting fuel by just riding by yourself, and that's needed for
Hmm.
the war efforts. Okay, let's
Yeah,
see.
and like those subtle things, like how people think that carrots are good for your eyesight, right?
They're not.
That was
Or
actually that was actually British propaganda,
oh, okay.
right? Because they had an over they were like trying to ration food, and they had an overproduction of carrots, right? And so they wanted to basically get people to go for carrots, and also because they would turn off the lights at night so that the bombers would have harder time bombing the place, right?
Yeah.
And now to this day, people still think that carrots are good for your eyesight because you're in the dark, you want to have better night vision, so you eat carrots,
Well,
right?
I thought they were, but I thought it was because they have vitamin A, and a deficiency of that can lead to poor eyesight. But maybe that's just like on a
Yeah.
marginal level. It's mostly just the propaganda. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
that was the origin of why people think that maybe it's true. Like I don't think so, right? But they would give it facts like it's packed with vitamin A, and whatever, right? To convince people to eat them, and like again, there's the connotation of like we have to turn off the lights at night because we're gonna get bombed, right? And so like we people want to have better night vision, and so like it came at a practical thing, and so like and like it's a cool piece of history that shows that at the end of the day, like these things that are propaganda or whatever that influence people are they are reinforced by art, you know right? Like and like you have these illustrations that are like oh, I should eat carrots now, you know what I mean, right? And like that's the power of art, dude. It has influenced history for so long, and people want to I feel like people underestimate art nowadays, you know what I mean, and the power of it, you know what I mean.
Yeah, you
um
mentioned. Oh, I forget for a second the fish in the pond. People like seeing fish in the water. It
mhm.
reminded me of an inspirational speech in this movie I love. It's called the FP, and I've heard someone describe it as a shitpost of a movie, where the whole thing's kind of parody, but it's also kind of inspirational. It's just fun. I'll try to link to. Well, they have a speech about how one of the crisis. They're having a crisis in it because they're running out of booze, and if there's no booze, then there's no bums around to feed the ducks at the park. And if there's no ducks at the park, how is anybody supposed to get their mind together or something? So
Yeah,
it's basically the same thing you're saying, just in a much funnier way. Um,
exactly. I
and
I, I sent some art from
yeah, I'll link that
here's-
in just a second. The other thing I was going to say was when you were talking about how nature in the city, it's interesting because I mean, to some degree in real life, but much more in art, we can sometimes see like fantastic visions of a city or futuristic one or alternate one that actually
Mm.
do have their own kind of not from nature, but their own unique aesthetics to them that kind of make us go, oh wow. And reality always, you do have spots of that in cities, but a lot of it's real ugly and just has like no artistic value, in my opinion. Also, that it's just, I think that's part of what can get people
I would say
down.
I
Like,
would say more modern cities don't have it, but in older cities, they definitely
yeah,
did have
oh
a
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like if you compare like what like a city from like the 17 or 1800s look like compared to
yeah.
like a
Even
strip mall
like
now.
Barcelona. Yeah, like Barcelona or like a city in Italy, right? Like art is everywhere and it's beautiful, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
with
I love that. I kind of feel like I
mhm.
almost want us to like max out on that sort of thing, you know, that
See, that's all built on art, dude. That's all built on creatives, right? And like it enriched and made everything more meaningful and beautiful, right? And the more we step away from that, right? Now we're going into like, like the Judge Dredd mega cities, you know what I mean? And it's like why is that seen as the worst result, right? Because there's zero art, there's zero creativity. It's just a like large concrete block, right?
well, actually, I
But
think even the comic version even had more art than that. Like,
yeah,
I played the game they made out of it, and the way they portrayed the city in that game was pretty fascinating. And they had all these like creative ads in it, and
yeah.
they were really living up to the mega city, you know, it's
Yeah.
sci-fi level. But
And see how like but even then, even in those like that dystopian future, art persists, dude.
yeah, yeah, it's
Creativity
bleeding
persists.
through it.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
here
like a it's like
I'll
a weed
show
that
what you
won't die.
linked. Let me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
So
like a weed that just won't die, you know? It's like it because it's part of us, dude. You know what I
okay,
mean?
I have the World War II art up on the screen that you were talking about.
Yeah. So this is a painting by Harvey Dunn, right? And like I think it just has a great energy to it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it definitely has
Like
a
think about
mood for
fear.
sure.
You know what I mean? You just like like the big thunderous loud, artillery fire, right? And like you look at it and you're like it's weirdly like hopeful. You know what I mean? Despite it's like, the situation. You know what I mean? It's almost like it's inspiring in a way that's like look at these men. Look how they fight in the trenches and they like, they're under fire, but they have the courage to continue, right?
See, I
And
almost get a different vibe of it entirely. What I get is like it's kind of oppressive, but also kind of fascinating, and like it's almost a little otherworldly. You know that this is. I mean,
yeah,
of
like
course,
like
the guy's body language has everything you're talking about, but like I'm just looking at like the lighting and the impact of it. It just it
mhm,
feels kind of otherworldly to me, which is. I mean,
yeah.
I can find that I find that fascinating
Yeah,
also. But
otherworldly because it's a painting, right?
yeah, well, and the
Like it's
lighting
a
too. You know.
yeah, and the lighting. It's like almost like a vision of something that like we're trying to represent, but it's not exactly that either, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
also light by artillery fire at night is not a natural thing we're used to. You know, it's
yeah, and it's not green like that, and it's not what I mean, this is the artist's portrayal of the thing, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and yet it is inspirational and like I don't know, like of course, like we could read into the colors and stuff like that, but like as if we look at the image as a whole and what's being portrayed, there's something being communicated, right? There's something that we feel through that. You know what I mean? And like I said, like I saw one of the comments says it makes you want to join them in the struggle. It's like it's like you see these men and then you're like oh let me grab the ammo and help you out or some shit. You know what I mean? Right? And like
yeah.
I'm sure
Or if you feel like they're going with the otherworldly thing, if you feel like,
yeah,
well, if those guys are going through this, we need to do our part to, you know, help
exactly.
them how we can, you know, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And it inspires, right? And it like we've like I said, art has done this for hundreds of since our inception, dude, right? So I don't think art is gonna go anywhere anytime soon. You know what I mean? I don't think art can even be obsolete. You know what I mean? Right? Unless you want to live in the gray, stale world of like
Oh,
Like
it
we
won't
are
be, but
creating gurus. I mean,
I think it's a matter of how it's prioritized and what the ratio is in society. That's what
mm,
I mean. Yeah, you're not gonna stop art. That's
yeah,
but at the same time, we could
severely
if the
wound
bean
it.
counters run it, we get hugely disincentivize it to the point that
Yeah,
only the people who do have the sort of you know the drive to do it no matter what are gonna be
yeah.
doing it, and then it's even then it can be buried. So
I'm just trying to give out this message to like people who are creative and be like, listen, dude, your work is important. It is worth something, right? Maybe you don't see it now, but maybe in the future it will be, right? Or maybe it's inspirational to the right person at the right time,
oh
you
for
know?
sure, yeah.
Like let's say like you have this really shitty art, you're like, oh man, and then you post it and like you get like no likes, right? But one person's like, hey, I actually really like this, and like that like the comment reinforces you, right? And then but your art also reinforced their own creativity. You know what I mean? And like maybe later on, like years from that, they are a higher creative force, and then they're like something in the subconscious brings out that piece again, and now it could be like used again, but now on a higher scale, and it can be more inspirational. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, or let's say that art really that particular art piece really is just a dead end. Nobody's ever going to care about it. Well, that might be
Yeah.
the stepping stone you need to get to the stuff
Get
that's
better.
really
Yes.
going to have like that impact. It's like you can't take the shortcut to get to the, or it's going to be a lot better if you do these. It's like exercise.
Yeah.
You're not going to win the race unless you're doing all this training first.
And that's the artist journey. Okay, that's the journey that we as creatives take. You know what I mean? Right? I'm not sure. I'm sure it's not for like everyone. Maybe it's even for like just like 1% of the world, right? But the artist journey, for those who are creative, for those who want to go through it, I would say it's valuable to observe it. It's valuable to look at it from like a step back and try to like observe, like almost like look at you as like a character in a video game, and like and see yourself like, oh, what's this guy about, how is his journey going, right? What do the like, okay, let's say like you have like a bunch of pieces, right? Like these things combined, what does that say about you? You know what I mean? Right? Like let's say like Ross's Game Dungeon, right? We have all these episodes, right? And we see them all lined together, and we say like, well, what is this about? What is Ross trying to connotate, right? A lot of times he's saying like, hey, let's get goofy with it, let's get a little weird, like, right? And like you don't say things like in a dry way, you know what I mean? You say like, oh, like there's a comedic backbone, and there's also like a weird um like sci-fi angle, and like, you know what I mean? And like you care about fantasy, and like, hey, isn't this weird and ridiculous? Like what human would ever do this thing, right? And yet it's in this game or whatever, right? And it shows that you prioritize like humor, right? You prioritize like being an actual person who has thoughts, and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Well, I kind of look at it like, you, if I was an audience member, I appreciate
Mhm.
stuff that gives me a sense of intrigue,
Yeah.
and if it's funny, even better. Yeah, or kind of gets kind of weird, that can be part of it. Oh, and the chat's pointing out that I have the, I've probably done this for all of them. I'm lazy with Twitch and just tend to hit a button and start streaming. Apparently, it's named Video Chat with Fans, but it's all right. They'll figure it out.
Oh, I'm sure you could change it. I don't know.
I
Whatever.
can, but I don't want to risk doing that. Look, everything looks about right right now.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just keep it. Let's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Let's.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
But
Well, the red green.
what really matters is if on YouTube it looks good.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly. Yeah, and the red green show has this saying like, if it's not broke, you're not trying hard enough. So
Yeah. And like I said, like part like for me, I hope that what I'm telling you makes you look at like your creative things a little bit differently, right? Or other creative works a little differently, where you have where you're like, yeah, like you look at it and there's like, but you want to look a little deeper. You know what I mean? See, what's the insight? What's the, you know what I mean? Like get into that mindset, right? And like, whenever I paint and I look at other artists, right? I try to look less at their style and more of their intention, right? And how they executed it. You know what I mean? And like that you can take from another artist, right? And imbue it into your own work, right? And like, whether like the meaning is generated through color or through the way the figure is or like the story being portrayed, right? You could be like, well, I see that they were thinking about it in this way, right? And that is more valuable than whatever style they painted it in. You know what I mean? Right? It's the intention, the ideas behind it.
It,
You know
it
what I
can
mean?
vary for the person too. I mean,
Yeah.
I tend to take more of a I tend not to overthink it unless it's already made it past a certain gate with me, which is just what is my
Yeah.
impression of this? D- am I kind of intrigued by this, or is it kind
And
of
and,
boring,
and
or
why?
am I just fascinating, or
Yeah.
does it give different feelings, that sort of
Exactly.
thing?
I'm not encouraging overthinking about it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is like like you felt something and you're like, well, why did I feel that? And that's it. It really goes like that's really as far as
Yeah,
it goes.
and somebody in
You
the
know what I mean?
chat's bringing up a good point. They say that they've seen stick figure doodles that have more of an impact than some $1 billion piece just because of the intention. Yeah,
Yep.
that's why I said earlier. If you go to art sites, cornucopia of art, and you're bound to find something that you're gonna like. But the
Hmm.
thing is, that's not necessarily gonna be an art. Like I personally would rather just see stuff on the internet that I think is more creative and interesting than necessarily going to an art museum where it's like, well, maybe because I mean, I feel like everybody beyond some objective things,
Hmm.
which might even vary. You know, one person's opinion about art isn't. It's very subjective as to what's gonna have an impact on
Yeah.
you, and I think I'm gonna have a better ratio of just random artists out there on the internet that have art I like than like a museum, or especially if it's I
Like
don't know.
like more
Some art I feel
contemporary.
like can be overrated or was impressive for the
Yeah.
time, or it's only popular because of just like the right critics. They knew the right
Yeah,
people,
I
or
would say that applies to more modern art, where it's
yeah,
like this weird amorphous shape, right? Um, I understand the reason for that art movement. I don't personally really enjoy it because I feel like when people look at it, the communication isn't very clear, right? And people are oh, you pay $1 billion for that? What a scam, right? But if you see something like the Mona Lisa or whatever, or a famous painting, or a painting that maybe you didn't even know about, that this, like this Renaissance painting right here that you
yeah,
have up,
yeah. I didn't know
right?
about it till this stream.
You look at it and you're like, that has value, right? So, I understand if you didn't want to go to a like more modern museum, but I would encourage people to
Oh,
visit like a historical museum
yeah,
with this
yeah,
kind of art, right? Where you look at it and you're like, wow, there's something beautiful about that, right?
yeah.
And to enrich yourself in that sense, right? And like even you right now, see how like you had that aversion, right? What I want to do is to convince you and be like, hey, you know, you may not like it, but maybe you should visit your local or a museum that's significant in your area and look at that art and see what it does for you. You know what I mean? See if like I'm sure there's at least one piece where you're like, whoa. You
Oh
know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, there's
Yeah.
probably going to be something at any museum I'm really going to like. It's just,
Yeah.
I just,
For
I
these
guess
modern
all I was getting at
modern
with
art.
that is
Yeah.
that we're, if you like art, we're, and you have a computer with internet, it's like we're
You
kings.
have easy
Yeah, yeah,
access.
that's what I was, and like for me personally, let's say the Mona Lisa.
Mhm.
That's something that's God, I don't even know how much that's worth, for like hundreds of millions if it was even
Mhm.
sold. But the to me, that's like on equal footing than somebody just on an art site that made some landscape I really like, and I find that
Yeah.
interesting. So I guess for me, it's all kind of equal like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't meaning it so much as to like downplay what's in museums, so much as to try to elevate everybody else out there who is a little more
Yeah, who is
unsung.
a
You
creator.
know.
Yeah, it's not just the museum that's valuable. It's like creative works on all fronts, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't.
Yeah. I just want to encourage, like, the thing is, I just want to encourage people to look at high quality art, you know, and understand that there is value, there is meaning to it, and it's worth, because I feel like people don't really look at museums as often as they could, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
And um and like, I know you're not coming from that angle, and I get that. Yeah.
I was actually gonna say that's probably internet and
Yeah.
convenience more than anything else.
Yeah. That's
You know,
what I'm saying is like seeing it in real life is different than seeing it in on the image, right?
it goes double for sculptures too. You know.
Yeah, yeah. So what I would encourage people is to see the paintings in real life, right? Because when you're on the screen, it's 2D, right? But when
Yeah.
you see it in real life, there is a depth to it, and that includes paintings that are technically
Yeah, the
2D, right?
textures and
You see the textures, you see the depth, you see and like there's a it's truer than you know what I mean? Than something on the internet, right? So I would encourage you, like, if you can, physically go to whatever museum you deem worthy, right? That has great work, right? You go in, and I'll guarantee you that, that feeling that you said when you're listening to the music where you transcend, right? You'll get that feeling, dude. Except visually, you know what I mean? Right?
yeah, it depends. I can be
Depends on the
pickier
work.
maybe.
Depends on
Yeah.
the work, right? But I'm sure you'll see one work that like makes you feel something.
Yeah,
You know what I
for
mean?
absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that, like, art is enriching in that way, right? And art, and like, that's why it's still valuable and has like something of use, something practical. You know what I mean? If you want to go on the completely practical side, hey, it brings in tourists. You know what I mean? And tourists
Yeah,
is a huge, economic boon. You know what I mean?
I think I finally
Right?
formulated a thought I was kind of having, but now when you're talking about the practicality, for people who don't think that's practical and, get a real job that'll pay money, meet different needs, it's almost like, yeah, that's how it is now. It seems like it sure would be better, especially as we get advanced technology and
Mhm.
as it becomes harder to have a job for everyone because of just how we have everything structured or job. If we being able to prioritize stuff like art seems like a much more desirable, like long-term goal for
Yeah,
society and humanity
yeah,
and stuff. I mean, it would be instead of having to work like an extra 2 hours at McDonald's or something, you could have an extra 2 hours to just look at more art or something like that. That seems
mhm,
like a much better like long-term goal, and
yeah.
so yeah, I mean,
And we realize this as people, right?
yeah,
Like, we would say, ideally, when it comes to automation, the things that get automated are things that are like, we don't that are like, just like, menial tasks, right? And that, like, this, like, in the utopic version, people are more encouraged to pursue their creative endeavors, right? And like that actually, in the long run, has more value than, whatever is gonna like, your the plumbing or something. You know what I mean? Right? Those things need to be met, right? But right now we're living in a world where the inverse is happening, where we have, people who are basically working for shit pay. It's like slave labor, and now the AI is generating, the works. You know what I mean? We don't, like, that's the inverse. We don't want
and
that.
and the thing is, it's not even that stable either.
Yeah.
It's not like, well, this is just the way things are. It's like, yeah, maybe today, year from now, 5 years from now, who knows what's going to be happening? Like, because an AI accelerates this too, or just automation in general. I think we're approaching more and more a state where there aren't enough like real jobs for everybody to support themselves.
In everyone, yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like, well, what the hell do you do then? And if you're kind of if you are beating the drum that there are better things to life than this, and if we're if we're smart, we can prioritize those more, you know, then
Hmm.
it's a good narrative to have in play, I guess. You know?
I think, and I think that's definitely what is happening now, because we're seeing a shift in society, right? And it's shifting towards automation, right? And like, you know, before YouTube as a career could have never exist, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
it's a platform that's based entirely on creative works, right? There is nothing practical about it. You know what I mean? But it is practical in the entertainment value, right? In the wisdom value. And we live in a world where the younger generation is completely inundated by things that inspire them, things or people who inspire them, and the want to become a creator, right? Like I heard a study where, like back in the day, um, most of the kids when they wanted to be like, they're like, oh, what do you want to be, right? They're like, oh, astronaut, oh, fireman, or whatever. It was always practical, right? And now like 8 out of 10 children will say, I want to be a YouTuber, you
Wow.
know?
Is that
Yeah,
high or?
it is that high. It's ridiculous. It's like ridiculously high. Everybody aspires to the dream, right? And it's all backed by like the creator, right? So it really shows what people value, okay, on a level that's not practical. You know what I mean? On a more meaningful level. You know what I mean? Right? And like if we could go in that direction and find a way to, reduce you know, like the ability to live to something easier and allow these creative works, like I think we could live in a, you know, utopian society where everything that's really of value is a creative work. You know what I mean? Or something that inspires another creative work. And like those things overlap on each other. And then we produce the things that we never could have thought of, before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to happen. You know what I mean? Because we live in the world, but that's the,
Well,
that's
yeah.
the inverse of your
It's
dystopia.
something. Yeah. I mean, it's something. I think it's probably not gonna happen either, but it's not something that couldn't happen. I guess is the way to look at it. You know,
Like,
and
I think
this
that's,
is not this is not fantasy. This is just fiction. You know, it's
yes.
uh,
But
it
like, that's what we hope happens, but that's not what's happening. You know what I mean?
right,
I
right,
think
and there's not a physically impossible reason this couldn't happen. It's just incredibly complex barriers to it.
Okay, I see this comment says, I think people want to be YouTubers because they think they could be rich and famous, not so much that it's a creative job.
Well,
Yes, but what I'm saying is that, like, sure, that may be like the reason behind it, right? But like the fact is that those really high paying and famous jobs are composed of creatives.
for what it's
That's what I'm
worth, my first video, I guess on YouTube, civil protection, I made that with zero intention of ever making any money off of
yeah.
anything creative.
And
Like,
and
not only was
and
it not
artists,
an option then, but I didn't even see like a path for that being practical. Like, I
mhm,
saw making your living as an artist as kind of like winning the lottery a little bit. Like when
yeah.
in the pre-YouTube days, that's how I grew up looking at it. So.
Yeah, exactly. And but the thing is that like the people who occupy those roles are creatives, they're people who care about those things. You know what I mean? And like, maybe you didn't intend to, right? And that's the thing. Like that's why the intention is so important. But I don't think someone who is like, "Oh, I want to be in the creative field for money," is ever going to succeed. You know what I mean? Right? Cuz like
Yeah, a
it's
few of
really
them,
not.
but probably not many. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really not it's not a, money making machine, you know what I
Well, the
mean?
thing is, it's lumping in so many different things too, because YouTube creator can be just some guy looking fashionable promoting a product, or it can be
Yeah.
somebody making their own like amateur video, or
Yeah.
or like an art channel, or musician. It's a wide net, that covers that. So.
But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that, creativity has value, right? I think we all know that. I think it's inherent to us, you know what I mean? And that like the idea of being able to be replaced, you know what I mean? I think is really just looking at it a very shallow, standpoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It doesn't take account to like the wisdom of us as people and of people and their relatability and like like just like oh, do you like that movie? No, that thing was shit. You know what I mean? I don't want to watch that. You know what I mean? So like what I'm saying is like no matter what, I think that good art seems to seep through all the bullshit and still get to us. You know what I mean? And
y-
and we as and we on a human level care about that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
and I
that
think that
that
was a good point brought up. I forget which one of us did it, but for the people who are dismissive of art, I imagine not many people watching this, but somebody who knows somebody like that,
Mhm.
like I think the key to get at is art really does bring meaning, and if you don't have meaning in your life, how far are you going to go on anything? You know, it's
Growing.
like, and I bet if you bring that point up to people, that even the total skeptics of the value of art, I bet they'll give them some pause. Because they'll think, like, okay, if you don't have any meaning in your life and you don't get it from things that maybe other more traditional people get it from, like from their job, like yeah, let's say you hate your job, you hate every job you've had, and you don't see
Mhm.
that changing. And when you look at the jobs that you might be able to get, you hate all the sound of all those too. So it's like, what's your answer for people like that? That that's and for people who kind of downplay art, it's so they may not get it, but they might understand. Might be able to understand that, like, oh, this is a scenario they hadn't thought of before, or they're not
Mhm.
familiar with that sort of thing.
Okay. You think I could use the restroom real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Like,
In fact, I was thinking about winding this down, but why don't you go ahead? I'll see if the chat has any questions for when you come back.
yeah, you can go ahead and look at them for a little bit. I gotta pee.
Sure. Okay. So let's see. What was the chat been saying? Yeah, I guess this one's been a little more. Well, this one's been a little more free form than the previous ones, but I, I got the impression that we would cover interesting things. So I'd say this is probably a good video chat that if you're. This one might be a little bit better to like listen to while you do something else, and maybe occasionally glance up when we're talking about like specific art examples uh, or for people feeling stuck like they have too much free time this summer. Boy, that's just an alien world for me right now. Because it was, I basically never have that problem, guys. That I have too much free time. like, it, in some ways, I almost find that fascinating. I don't know how much of that is my own personality versus how much is what like I think I've told this story before. I remember early on, like from my mother, like as a kid, saying I was bored with something, and every single time I said that, my mother like immediately found like some work for me to do. So that like subconsciously made me learn the lesson to never say that I'm bored. And maybe I kind of took that to heart on a deeper level because I remember that pretty early on. Like every single time I said I was bored, my mother would put me to work. So, okay, so asking, can you summarize what happened before people came in late? Well, you'll see it on the YouTube later, but the short version is he's saying art has importance, and Sean finds it interesting the difference between sort of the real world versus what he refers to as the divine or like the imagination, what could be, Uh, yeah, importance of art. It got kind of fuzzy with like what everything we were discussing, but uh, let's see. I'm seeing if there's any other questions. I was just talking about different things with the chat while you were out. Uh,
Mhm.
Architecture is getting so artsy nowadays. They're forgetting to make it sturdy first. Well, maybe some architecture, but that's probably just the high profile stuff you hear about rather than like the new
Yeah, day
strip
to day
mall
market.
going up, or no. In fact, I'd love it if like the mundane had more of an art focus in some way or another. Yeah, like try to raise the floor of it.
Yeah,
Oh, is
just the
that something
everyday.
you're working on
Yeah.
now, or
Yeah, so this is a piece I finished recently,
okay? Give me a
right?
second. I'll share it. Okay, yeah. Here's new art that he's done.
Yeah, and I just wanted to honestly I just wanted to show it to you, but like also to your fan base, um, that like there you go, and like the story for
Oops.
this one, it was inspired by the Hong Kong protests, right? And like basically it's like about um like that love is stronger than oppression. You know what I mean? That our own humanity, um, at the end of the day, because you can see that the couple are much larger than any of the police forces behind them,
Oh,
right?
okay. I thought that was a perspective thing at first.
Yeah, I mean it could be, but either
Oh,
way,
open to interpretation. Yeah.
yes. There's like whatever you see, you like you can find your own meaning, right? I don't want to impose it, but my intention was so that people feel that like that love at the end of the day is stronger than the oppression of the system. You know what I mean? That our own humanity is more valuable and stronger and has like even more color to it than the oppressive forces that are pushing down upon us. You know what I mean? Right?
It kind of reminds me of one. I think I showed it in one of my game dungeons. The album art for I think it's Prodigy music for the Jilted generation.
Hmm.
You okay if I put that one up to show
Yeah, go
people?
ahead, dude. Yeah,
Yeah, I pulled up the link here.
it's funny because I was hoping that you would bring that piece up because it has a similar
Yeah,
energy
yeah, I
to this.
love that one. Like, because you're the police van and the cops that you had there had something similar there.
Yeah, and um, I really feel that like especially now because like I have a like I'm kind of rebellious in my own right. You know what I mean? But I feel like all creatives and all artists are. You know what I mean? There's like fuck the system. You know what I mean? Right? And if you want to pull mine back up again.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I wasn't meaning to linger on. I guess. Oh, oops. Okay, you gotta. Yeah, there we go.
I just wanted to show like that there is you know um that art is still significant and it could still tell you something. You know what I mean? And that there is a meaning behind it. You know what I mean? And how people present that's however they are artistically, right? But yeah, that's a piece that I just finished. It's like a 20 by 40. It's a very large piece. It's taken me, quite a while. This has been like maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months, right? But I've been working on this and I just finished it, so it was like kind of like a surprise to me, and I wanted to show it to you.
No, yeah.
Just,
Well, now you get
just
an even bigger audience.
yeah. Um, and I just wanted to share it. You know what I mean? Nothing really behind that. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, we could go back to the feed if you want to us to the
Yes.
humans.
I, I was well from looking at just to play art critic. I guess maybe it's intentional. I guess the only part I don't like as much is like the wall behind it or maybe I wasn't seeing the detail. Like it almost looks. Are this meant to be buildings or a wall behind them?
Yeah, it's an abstraction of buildings, right? To show like the city of Hong Kong,
Yeah,
right?
I guess what it is for me, it almost feels like it almost looks more like a wall, which in a sense that it kind of cramps down everything and to the point where I feel like it doesn't let the rest of it shine through as much. Whereas if it was more like a row of buildings and there was some distance to it, I don't
Mhm.
know. My intuition tells me that would feel a little bit better, but it's not like I would do a better job. So don't
Yeah. The,
just
the the intention was for it to feel crushing, because
okay.
like behind the scenes, behind the officers is the the CCP behind them. You know what I mean? And they are represented by the oppressiveness of the city or whatever. But it's
Yeah,
like
I guess
people.
what it is like the perspective of it. It makes the couple seem still very close to that, where it feels like they're not actually breaking free from it.
Mhm.
Whereas I feel like that's kind of the feel you were going for with it. But
Yeah.
anyway, feel free to
It almost feels
disregard what I've
like
said.
a
I'm
business card,
hardly
you know what
expert
I mean?
art critic here, so just
Yeah.
it's
I
better
mean,
than
like,
anything I could do easily.
it's whatever you want. Like that's like I want to have my work be like have like a little bit of an abstraction, right? So that people can interpret things and people can like put their own meaning behind things, right? And like that's devoid of me, right?
Oh,
You know what I mean?
actually, I think I know what it is too. It's also quite bright, so it sort of draws your or the faces of the buildings. It draws your eyes towards the background a little bit more than the couple, for me at least.
Hmm.
So I mean the couple gets a lot, but it's like kind of competing with that. Whereas if it was like a little bit darker, then it might go more towards the couple. But
Hmm. I
anyway,
mean,
I,
yeah. Like I'm not gonna change it or anything. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Right?
no, of
But
course
it's
not. Like
yeah.
you just
Because to me, it's like I don't really like have control over like the finished product. I mean, like at a certain point, my brain is just like it's done. You
oh,
know what I mean?
absolutely, yes.
Like
I
like
have a similar
the
attitude towards many of my videos where I'm aware, yeah, I could have made that better. It's done. It's out. All right. Try and do
yeah
better in the future. You know?
and like um in my mind, right? It's just like it's the muse, right? Like she tells me when it's done. You know,
Even
like
better.
I could have worked on it more, but she's like, hey, look, you're done. This is done. You whatever message you're trying to say, it's coming through. Leave it alone. You know
That's
what I
great.
mean?
You know what? That probably puts you ahead of many artists who do not have such a defined cutoff point. You know.
Yeah. And like, I was working on this for a while, so I could have like just kept going until it's done. But there's an instinct. There is something beyond me that says, "Hey, it's done." You like if there's flaws, you leave them. It's flaws and all.
And
You know what I mean?
plus, there are plenty of styles I don't care for. Also, not saying
Mhm.
yours is like that, but
Yeah, yeah.
like individual
Yeah,
elements.
I hope you enjoy
An
my work.
individual element in my mind's like wanting to like tweak it. That's probably just my own. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. But see, you're saying that as a also as another creator, right?
yeah,
And
exactly,
that's how we
exactly.
look at it.
Yeah,
But when you when you present it to the regular person who doesn't see, who doesn't see art or anything or has no technical knowledge, they just go like, "Whoa," and then they see it as it is, right? But yeah, like I just want to tell people to look at art a little bit differently, look at creative works a little bit differently, and if you are a creative, think a little deeper into your own inclinations and like look at your body of work and say like, well, what am I trying to what am I trying to say here? What are the things that I prioritize? And if you know those things, you could actually emphasize them later in your future works. You know what I mean? And like, I'm not sure, I'm not, like whether it's helpful for you today or in 20 years or whatever. It's not really, I don't really care. I'm not trying to force this upon you. I'm just saying like, hey, think about it. You know what I mean? Hey, have this in your mind sometime. You know what I mean? Right? Chew on it a little bit, right? And I'm sure that your work will benefit from that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
well, I guess I don't have too much more to add. I could maybe wind this down. If maybe there's a few questions from the chat if they have any, but
Yeah, let's start winding this down because I'm getting hungry, man.
yeah,
I
yeah,
need
me
to
too.
eat.
Well, yeah, then there's going to be like a 30-second delay, and however fast somebody can type it while they're looking at it. But yeah, well, thanks for coming on. I'll probably be doing more of these video chats. So I guess I'll see where it goes. I'm glad I had one that was mostly not about AI for
Yeah.
to give people a change of pace.
Yeah, and I had a fun time just talking to you in general. So I think hopefully maybe in the future we could do another one because there's still like I think there's a gold mine. There's still a lot to talk about. You know what I mean?
Sure. Although I think we should have like more different topics if we have another one. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
of
it could
course.
still be art related. It just stuff we didn't really
We're talking
cover.
about different aspects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff we didn't cover the first time around, that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, I don't want to regurgitate it.
That's a great quote from the chat. Art is never finished, only abandoned. The Star Wars special editions are an example of this. Yeah, that's one where that's sort of the opposite problem where the viewers kind of wish the creator would quit
But
messing
what
with
if
it.
more? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, when it comes to your movie, right?
Yeah.
See, that's another thing I wanted to talk
Well,
about.
yeah, that might take more time to talk about, but
Hey,
I'm
well,
not
we're
going to
not, we're
give
not,
plot spoilers just for anybody watching.
yeah.
It would
I,
just be a
I, I just,
process
I just
question.
wanted to, like, offer you, right? Like, if you wanted a cover for like a movie poster kind of thing, right? Like I could do that for you.
I
You know what I mean?
probably should have one, but that's the sort of thing where I'm intentionally trying to like not that cross that bridge till I get to it because I don't want to be thinking like I find I don't get as much done if I'm thinking too far ahead in the future and acting like it's already done. Like, oh, I'll distribute it like it.
Yeah, yeah,
For
yeah.
where
I
I
know.
am, it's so much better to just focus on like, no, just
Yeah,
get it made. Like, that's the
I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
hey, I'm an artist. If you ever want, if you ever thought like, hey, I want a movie poster for this thing, right? Like, I would be willing to do that concept for you.
I
You know what I mean?
appreciate the offer. I have a
Yeah.
few ideas what I might have, but that's
Yeah.
later on. And, okay,
That's
somebody's
like years
asking.
from now. I just wanted to offer you, and like, if you
I
had that
appreciate
thought,
it.
you know what I mean?
Uh,
I would cross your mind. You know what I mean? Right?
let's see, I lost the question. Oh, what would you say is a medium that is the most borderline when it comes to defining it as art? Music is art, painting is art, video games are art. So I guess he's asking, what would you consider borderline if this is art or not?
Um, Maybe photography. You know,
Yeah, that can
it's it
vary.
it it, it, ri- it rides the line a lot because it's because it's very separated from like crafting something. It's just like you know what I mean. But there is the argument of like capturing the right moment, composition, right? But like in terms of the mediums that I think are like the least connected to the divine, I would say like photography is there, right? Um, AI is just 100% the least connected, right? But I would say things that take less effort to do have you know what I mean?
Well, I
Like
was thinking with
for painting,
photography, there actually can be a lot of effort into that, but I'd say for your definitions, I would say what disconnects it from the divine is that it's going to be real life one way or another. Like yeah, you can kind of do like trick photography or combine elements, but you are restrained to what's in reality, I guess.
yes, you're not creating anything.
Yeah, you're
Like
capturing, I guess, but
yeah, like because art is an abstraction of the real thing, not the real thing itself. You know, right?
and you can manifest things that they're just not out there in photography. It's
Yeah,
like you would have to you would have to use it art as a way to kind of get to it. I mean like hand drawn or created art, that sort of thing.
hmm but
Or
yeah,
AI voice acting borderline art. I think he might go for no.
I mean, AI voice acting, like it just depends on the writer at that point. You know what I mean? Right? But like, does it replace a voice actor? I don't think so. You know what I mean? I like I said, I think all of these things are great for meme generation, right? For things that are just humorous little snacks, right? But as true creative works, I don't think it'll work. You know what I mean?
Uh, I'm not sure if which someone's asking what's some video game architecture you really appreciate. I'm not sure if this is for both of us or what.
I mean, we could
I'd
both
have to think
answer.
about it. Well, okay,
Um,
lately, okay, you go ahead. You go ahead.
yeah, yeah. One that I like. Okay, so I actually have like a video coming out. Like it was an art book review for the Mass Effect trilogy, right? That'll premiere at like 1 o'clock, so like in like actually like half an hour, right? But in that, I really appreciate the architecture that they created in Mass Effect, right? Because like there's a really like utopian feel to it where they have like these clashes, not even clashes, but like a symbiotic relationship between buildings and nature, right? Where like you like let me see if I could find something where you have pieces that are like buildings and but they're not interfering with nature. It's not like oh you had to remove like all this like natural like landscape to have it. You know what I mean? Right. Let me see if I could find something.
Well, my
Uh,
answer at the moment, so it could change or think of others, is Remember Me. That game is delicious architecture wise. That like that's I'm loving every level of it visually.
see. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let me send that to you.
Oh, okay.
You see the piece on the bottom right there? You could like zoom in on that.
Yeah.
Like this design aesthetic is like throughout Mass Effect, where in the future we have architecture that works with the environment and doesn't does not what do you call it detract. Why is it so like low quality?
I don't know. I zoomed in, like you said. This is
Maybe
is it not?
click open original.
Uh,
Like if you click the thing.
I right clicked on it and then I hit like copy image link and then I pasted it and that's what came up. I don't know.
Okay,
Sorry.
whatever. You
Well,
can
well,
see
they
it.
get the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, you could basically see it, right? Where there's like this you see how the rock face is a part of the building and they like incorporated it into it,
Yeah, I
right?
like stuff like
I
that.
think I think if architecture can go this route where it doesn't it works with the nature. um I love that aesthetic, you know what I mean? And on a futurist level, I think that's definitely the ideal, you know what I
Oh,
mean,
you
for
you may
architecture.
have seen it already. One of the game art books I have looked up before is Anno 2070.
Yeah.
It has some of that element of what you're talking about, how it's kind of like half tech, half kind of working with the environment.
Hmm. And that's like I feel like that's our the future where we can really flourish, you know what I mean, where humanity can flourish, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
where we're working with nature and not against it, you know what I mean, where we don't have to level an entire forest to put a parking lot, you know what I mean, right?
yeah, that's gonna involve many steps, though. Yeah, somebody's saying, "Hell yeah, organic futurism." So
Hmm.
okay, and another person saying, "Look at designs by Sid Mead." I'm not familiar with the
He
name, but
does all the alien artwork, all like the weird
oh
like.
yeah, H.R.
Oh, no,
Geiger.
no, wait, that's no, no, that's somebody else. Sid Mead did the artwork for Blade Runner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Sid Mead's really good. He's a fantastic illustrator.
Well, I think I'm about ready to wind it down. If there's anything else you
Yeah.
want to add, you can do it before we go, or
Uh, I'll just plug in my channel and like call
sure.
it. You know what I mean? So my channel is Artbook Addiction, right? I do art book reviews. I talk about designs and like stuff, and I look through the entire art book and try to look at every piece, right? So it's a super long thing. You could just put it on the background if you like, right? But that's what my channel consists of. That and talking about the artist journey, talking more about like the divine versus our world, right? And talking about like things like creative philosophy and how to become a better creator and like reach deeper into your own meaning, right? So I don't think many channels offer that. So like, if you're interested, check my channel out. Yada yada, likes and all that, whatever.
I think
Subscribe.
you had some topical stuff too. Like I saw clips where I think you had multiple ones where you're talking about how people like trying to trash art in museums are just being idiots, like because
Yeah,
as like a form of protest. That's
yeah, that was stupid. Yeah.
so.
So I
You
have.
have some more casual, fun stuff in there too, from what I saw. So.
hmm So yeah, that's my channel. I had a really good talk with you, man. I really enjoyed that.
Sure. Well, thanks for coming on. This is just kind of an experimental thing I'm doing too. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're reaching out to people, or not reaching out, but like
I'm
having.
letting people reach out to me is what I'm doing. So.
Yeah. I hope like through our conversation, maybe you look at your creative process a little different, or gain some kind of meaning. Maybe you'll visit an art museum like one day or
I've
something.
been
You
to
know what I
art
mean?
museum. Oh, you meant in general.
No, no,
Yeah,
I mean like
there's
yeah,
you, the singular, and you, the collective, plural. So.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, visit an art museum, like, and take a look at that, and glean some meaning from it. You know what I mean, right? But yeah, it was fun, dude. Yeah, I had a good time.
All right, I'll see everybody. I'm ending the stream now.